Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all fandoms, welcome to the Ferret Raccoon podcast, episode 131. This is the end of the year, best and worst special. I'm Ace.
I'm the Manga Raccoon.
I'm the Indigenous Owl.
And we are here to pretty much cap off not only the end of the year, but the end of the decade as well. As you can hear, I am joined by Owl as well as Ace, making his glorious return.
I've been gone for so long. Feels like 7 years.
Feels like 7 years exact to the day. But given the fact that 2019 has been, as you'll find out over the course of this recording, a very interesting year.
You could say that.
You had to come back for this one.
Yeah, it's been far too strange and confusing of a time, and I have to comment on it.
I mean, yeah, we do live in society at the end of the day. Yeah. So, but for those of you who don't know, when we usually do the end of the year podcast, there is no news topics. There is no real discussion of current events and news and that. We get straight to our picks of the best, the worst, the most disappointing, honorable mentions, as well as other things that happened during 2019 that covers pretty much everything in terms of media as well as other things. So we're wasting no real time with this podcast because it's probably going to be a long podcast, but we will run down the general quick rules of how this podcast is going to run for the most part. So how we're going to do it, we're going to go basically via alphabetical order through all the essential categories for the most part, roughly regarding 2019 stuff. We have some fun stuff at the end. And the alphabetical order for us to go in turns will essentially be Ace, then Owl, then me, going through all said subcategories in said alphabetical order. If we don't have anything, we're going to skip it. Best and worst, only going to be a maximum of 10 things, but there will not be just 10 things in all of our lists. Honorable mentions is just 3 this time around. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else I'm missing for the most part. I guess it will get covered if it need be. But ready to do this, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add that it's, seen as we're from the UK, it's only stuff that came out in 2019 to us in the UK.
Yeah, so there's probably going to be some things that pop up where it may seem as if it's from 2018 or 17 or so. But given things, yeah, we get things quite late.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess we will start with our first main category, which is going to be books. And Ace, you were starting us off with all your stuff for books for the most part?
Yeah, so I'm starting with my honourable mentions, and I basically only read comics this year. I didn't get to read any manga or actual books. So I promise I do read books. For my honourable mentions, I have, for the first one, The Mask. I Pledge Allegiance to the Mask. This only just started, and it's really cool that finally The Mask is back. It's got the same bizarre Tex Avery, like, comical shenanigans going on, but it's definitely got some sociological commentary going on. It's really cool.
Is it as violent as the original comics?
Yeah, you better believe it.
Good.
One of the first things you see is quite disgusting, so enjoy if you like it.
Who's publishing this, by the way?
I believe it's Dark Horse.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, they're still one of the big secondary sets of comics.
Next to, like, Indigo and
Image, Boom, and I always forget the others. Dynamite, that's the other big one. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not know about Mask.
It only just started. Only 2 issues are out at the moment. The 3rd is coming out on Christmas. Yeah, you got something to look forward to, kids. Next one on the honourable mentions is Far Sector. This is part of the DC's Young Animal set of comics that's curated by Gerard Way. Far Sector deals with a Green Lantern in a literal far sector of the galaxy, dealing with a murder in a society where no one ever gets killed. It's been thousands of years since someone was killed last. So it's a very interesting noir, written by N.K. Jemisin, and it is great. The art design is fantastic, and it's probably the best Green Lantern outfit ever.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, she's an amazing character too. So, definitely read it if you want some good Green Lantern.
Because, boy, do we need some good Green Lantern.
Yes, you do. And my last honourable mention is Harleen. This one's only just started as well. I think it's 2 issues in, but they're quite bulky. And essentially, it's dealing with Harley Quinn's life, becoming Harley Quinn, starting from her as a psychiatrist. And it goes very psychological. It's very deep and probably some of the best written stuff involving her. Highly recommend it, and again, beautiful. I can't pronounce the artist's name, but it is something stunning to look at.
Okay.
For my top 10, I'm going to start number 10 with Tom King's run on Batman. He's finished. He did 85 issues, I believe.
Jeez.
Including some annuals as well. And he's got some of the best written stuff that everyone hates. And I love it.
Yeah, I was about to say, as soon as you mentioned hate and I love it, I was like, yeah, that's typical ways. But, whatever.
It deals so much with Batman as an emotional person and his love life with Catwoman, and they actually got married, which is amazing.
Has that ever happened in the comics? Okay.
There's some like retcon stuff in the past where you don't see them get married, but they got married. But that's in other Earths, so it doesn't really count.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and this is the first time it's actually happened, and his relationship with Superman is perfect. They're like best friends, and it's so beautiful and so sweet. I can't believe it. And he made Kite Man amazing.
Really?
Yeah, but trust me. There's I believe it's a 2-issue, interpart of the War of Jokes and Riddles that's about Kite Man, and it's some of the best comics this year. Well, sorry, last year that bit, but it was great. So if someone can make Kite Man cool,
That's
they're
a
good.
testament right there.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Number 9 is Paper Girls. It finished this year. I think it was cut a bit short, but the ending extra comic was so sweet, and it's so sad to see these girls go, because it was some of the best 80s throwback stuff.
Yeah, I need to get into that series big time.
It's 30 issues full, and I think you'll like it.
Yeah,
definitely.
It's on the list.
Yeah. Number 8 is East of West, which I think I talked about previously. The weird western sci-fi set in a post-apocalyptic-ish America. Crazy amount of genres, and it's ending this year on, I believe, issue 45 or 46. So it's almost done, and the build-up to this final war of the Horsemen is so cool. I'm so excited to see what happens. I can't wait. Number 7 is Immortal Hulk. It's back this year again.
Yay.
It's honestly some of the best Hulk stuff forever. I don't think I've seen this good writing, and putting Hulk in supernatural style scenarios rather than science works so well. It's haunting and just amazingly written. If you like Hulk or you want good Hulk, just read this, read nothing else, because you don't need anything else. Number 6 is Gideon Falls. I believe this is by Jeff Lemire. I can't pronounce his name. It's a really weird kind of urban horror. Essentially a weird blend of surrealism and multiverses in a way. And it's incredibly dark and quite twisted, and there's some very good horror in here. Some bits that I'm like, wow, comics shouldn't creep you out like this. So,
right, okay.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Good to hear.
Number 5 is Deadly Class, which are some of my favourite boys who are all dead. Quite sad. Poor Billy.
Oh, no.
But it's still going on strong, and new characters introduced are so damn cool, especially this new girl, who's fantastic, and Marcus is still pissed at everything. It's so good. I love it. If you like teenagers, essentially, at an assassin school, dealing with fucked up shit in the 80s, you will like it. Especially drugs and getting pissed off at Ronald Reagan. Yeah.
That's a sell right there.
Yeah, exactly. Number 4, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, The Tempest, which is the end of The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Alan Moore's been working on this since the 2000s, like the League in general, and this one finally returns to, I think, what a lot of people like from Alan Moore, his hatred of superheroes. Yeah. He frames them as propaganda, and essentially the English government as a hell space, essentially run by an evil James Bond. It is fantastic. And if you like basically taking the piss out of stuff that's really status quo, you will like it. In one of the previous comics, he made Harry Potter the Antichrist, so you know.
Oh wow!
Because he technically
what?
is, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Technically in other religious.
And he goes on.
Really?
He does a magic school shooting in Hogwarts. Yeah.
Whoa!
Yeah.
I think you should clarify that this is a Harry Potter-esque like character, not
Yeah,
Harry Potter
it's
himself.
not officially Harry Potter because you only see the back of his head.
Oh, okay.
But it's Harry Potter.
It's clear to what it is.
He kills a redhead boy and a girl with bushy hair and buck teeth. Pretty much Ron and Hermione. Its League is great, and the Tempest is a fantastic end.
Damn.
Well, Al looks like she's about to walk out.
Yeah, I'm like, no, forget this. I'm out of here.
Number 3, which I have to say is probably the best sequel to Watchmen, and it's not a sequel to Watchmen, is Peter Cannon Thunderbolt.
Okay.
It's based on the character who Ozymandias is based off of from the 40s. I think it's 40s or 50s, being Peter Cannon. Essentially challenging the original Watchmen in not only partly story, which it mostly glosses over, but in form, going for a very formalistic usage of comics.
Right.
And it's really cool. There's lots of indie black and white stuff in there, which is great, and lots of LGBT stuff, which Watchmen doesn't really touch on. It's not there in the comics.
Right.
There's one character that's like a lesbian and she dies, and that's it, basically. Oh, and there's a gay guy and he dies in the original Watchmen. That was written in the 80s.
Oh,
and
right.
yeah,
Okay.
Alan Moore doesn't know much about it. So,
Right.
but Peter Cannon is great, and if you actually want a good sequel to Watchmen, you might want to read this.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that tone right there.
Number 2 is the X-Men House of X / Powers of X, which is 2 6-part miniseries that are technically a combined series. It's the most interesting stuff that's been done to the X-Men in years. They actually start their own island nation state and essentially hold the world at almost ransom in order to make them a real state.
Right.
And it's fantastic. They're selling medicine and just trying to keep mutants alive.
Okay.
It's really cool, and it's written in a documentary style, which I haven't really seen in comics. So
Yeah, and I'm
That's
trying to get my head
unusual,
around that
yeah.
as well, yeah.
like there are pages of like document stuff, and then the actual comic is written almost non-linearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The word was
Interesting.
failing me.
No,
Yeah.
it's-
And my number 1 is Heroes in Crisis, written by who I previously mentioned, Tom King. This time dealing with the emotions and PTSD of superheroes,
oh, wow, okay.
especially as that's place for the superheroes to talk about their feelings,
Yeah.
gets attacked and superheroes get killed. It's amazing, heartbreaking, and some of the best stuff you'll ever see about superheroes as real people. And very interesting, and everyone hates it because everyone hates Tom King for some reason. So yeah, I love it. It's my number 1,
He'll get his
Okay.
appreciation in like 10 years' time.
definitely. My last is my disappointing, and this is the official sequel to Watchmen by DC Comics, called Doomsday Clock, which is a crossover of Watchmen and DC Comics where Dr. Manhattan invades the DC universe. And it starts off interesting, and it goes downhill fast.
Well, that wouldn't be interesting because it's Dr. Manhattan. I'm not saying he's a terrible
yeah.
character. I'm saying he's a real threat that no one can really stop.
Yeah, and I will say they handle that okay, because he's testing Superman as a hopeful person. But it does not work how they end it. It's horribly ended, and some of the character ways how they go is awful. One character takes over Rorschach, and his first outfit is cool, and then he just wears Rorschach's outfit for the rest of the comic, which fucking sucks.
Because Rorschach.
Exactly. And that character was great until the ending, where he just decided, oh no, don't worry, Rorschach can be a good guy.
You
Yeah.
kind of missed the point there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's a villain.
Rorschach, if technically he's a villain,
Okay.
but everyone seems to love him and think he's cool. Yeah.
Wait, people who read this or in the story?
Everyone in general, like, who reads the original Watchmen thinks
Right,
he's
okay.
cool.
Well, yeah,
And I
he's-
think the author thinks he's cool too.
he's cool in maybe an aesthetic sense, but
Yeah.
what he does and what he represents is not cool.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, right, okay.
He's like pure 80s objective libertarianism.
Like, have you seen what that
Horrifying.
character looks like?
No.
The trench coat, hat,
And he's got the Rorschach, like, ink test as a
Yes,
mask.
okay,
Yeah, that's
I know the
Rorschach,
character.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah. Doomsday Clock fails.
Big time.
That's why you should read Peter Cannon Thunderbolt instead.
Or the original Watchmen.
Yes, definitely. That's me for books.
Arla, do you have anything
No,
for books?
no.
Oh, so it's just me. I only have 2 books, and they're interestingly enough coming under art and informative.
Ooh.
I spent most of this year buying a lot of older books because I had a bit of a mental breakdown and got very paranoid and went, I got to buy these books before they go out of print and before they get banned. So the only 2 newish books that I bought, and they are coming under my best books that I did read and have a look at. My number 2 is going to Manga by Dr. Nicole Kulinger. I can't say her second name. And Matsubutsa Rokoku. I probably butchered his name. But this is essentially the book that was written and made regarding the British Museum's exhibition on manga, which, in my opinion, goes into way more greater detail than the exhibition itself does. This is a very in-depth book that essentially deals with manga as an art form. This isn't your average manga started here and then it got popular and here's some ones you should read. This book goes into detail about how manga is structured, created, produced, how it came to be, some of the more iconic people, some of the people who are actual references to where we are right now. It has interviews as well as artwork created for the exhibition. This book is definitely what you'd want to read if you want to get into manga, if you want to learn about it, if you're a veteran of it. This is the book. It is heavily detailed, it's pretty thick, and it goes into mass detail, pretty much everything. That's the key word with this book, is detail. Like, they don't just go, oh, here's the creator of Astro Boy. They tell you why he is so important. They go into great lengths and detail, as well as interviews, archival stuff. It's an amazing book.
Okay.
I would highly recommend trying to get it if you even have just a passing interest in manga.
Do you have a rough page count at all? Because it sounds like quite a thick book.
It is a thick book. I would say at least over 300 pages.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds cool.
It is a book. I don't have it with me. I would have brought it out if anything, but it's very detailed and I highly enjoy it. My number 1 book is going to go to Andrew Marr with AFOS, which essentially Andrew Marr is a artist, mainly an ink-based artist. You can find him on the internet or Twitter or wherever on the internet. Essentially, this is his kind of debut book where he essentially takes his inkwork-based art and essentially takes it to, collecting artwork from over the course of a few years, essentially taking his imagination and implying them into different realms and fantasy, and touches upon different things like religion. And he essentially explores and kind of creates characters like mystical characters and creatures from realms such as like the celestial realm, which is like angels, and you have the terrestrial realm, which is like fairies, centaurs. Then you have the infernal realm, which is like demons, succubuses, and Medusa's, interesting enough, and then as well as like the kind of underwater realm, which is like mermaids and stuff. His character design is really interesting in the way he depicts these like more classical creatures, as well as coming up with his own kind of characters or variations or mixtures of things, whether it be like how he depicts like Medusas in very interesting ways, or how he has them dressed in certain ways. And I will clarify, a lot of his drawings do feature, I guess, fictional characters that I guess are technically topless or technically nude. If you're not a fan of, I guess, romantic embracing / kissing and that kind of stuff, you might not like his artwork to some extent. Not all of it is like that, but some of it is. You are going to see naked genitalia to some extent, but I don't really count that as anything pornographic because it's illustrated.
Yeah.
A lot of his work does come across as really tastefully erotic in a lot of senses, and it doesn't feel like smutty or anything like that. Okay. Really good artwork. It's a mass body of his artwork, and I just love his work. It's definitely an interesting take on that kind of stuff, and it's very inspirational at the same time as well. Also love the use of key colors like red and gold he kind of adds on top of his original black and white ink drawings, which kind of really enhances things, whether it's blood or jewelry.
Oh, wow. That's
That's awesome. Absolutely love this book. I've probably looked through this book about 8 times already, and I only got it like a few days ago. Absolutely love it, and I wanted to give him a shout out. So we're going to move on to, I guess, what we could consider one of the big ones for this podcast, and that is going to be films.
Oh, yeah.
would be one of the big ones, I guess you could say. We're going to have 2 main subcategories for this, which is feature-length films and short films. So I think most people have mainly feature-length films, I would imagine.
Yeah, yep. There was a short film that I wanted to watch and I didn't get around to it, and I'm sad about that. So yeah, if someone mentions it, I'll say that's what I wanted to watch, but I didn't.
Fair enough.
Oh, okay.
So for my honourable mentions, I'm going to start with the absolutely adorable Detective Pikachu.
Oh yeah.
I loved this film because it was the cutest thing I'd seen.
Oh God. Go on.
Sorry, we just got attacked.
Yep.
The most adorable thing I'd seen in cinema all year, and the fluffy Pokemon were amazing, and I just wanted them to be real and make me a child again. I loved it.
I mean, it's been a long time coming for, I guess, a film like this.
Yes.
So it makes sense.
A live-action Pokemon film, and it actually being watchable. That's shocking.
Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I missed out on that.
I haven't watched it yet. I didn't get the chance to watch it, but I'm glad it did well.
Yeah, and Justice Smith as the lead was fantastic, and I'm so happy he's got more work after the Get Down was cancelled.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
My number 2 honourable mention is John Wick Chapter 3 Parabellum. Incredible action. I'm happy John Wick got another film because it's some of the best action in Western films.
It actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually having some of the people from the Raid films in there.
Really?
It was probably one of the best action scenes. It was so good.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah. I loved that, and I could not believe it when they popped up. It was so good.
See, because I know Chapter 4 is meant to be coming out in a few years' time.
Okay.
And everyone is now going, when are we going to get the Raid cross John Wick?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Like, that would be the end game of, I guess, that kind of subgenre to some
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah.
So,
That's so cool.
let's root for that.
Yeah. My number 3 honourable mention is Climax, the French artsy dance movie. It is bizarre, surreal, and beautiful to watch, and probably one of the first things that I actually saw interpretive dance and thought I understood what they were trying to say.
Oh, right.
Because
okay.
I've never been able to do that. So I'm happy with that, and I think it's worth watching, especially if you're not turned off by not safe for work content, because there's quite a bit.
Oh, alright.
Yeah. If I'm correct, there's full frontal nudity for men and women. So, yeah.
So everyone is either happy or displeased.
Exactly.
Right.
Everybody.
And that soundtrack is bumping though.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't watched the film, but I heard that soundtrack, and when I saw Aphex Twin on there, I was like,
It is good. So damn good.
Oh boy. I think you're on to
My top 10.
top 10. Yeah,
Right.
go on. Go ahead.
So my number 10 is Knives Out, the noir murder mystery by Rian Johnson, who made one of the best Star Wars films.
Oh, dear.
This is a fantastically acted film,
Okay.
and it's a hilarious mystery in the fact that almost everything you think it's going to happen, it kind of does, but it does it so early
Yeah.
that you just get more surprises.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I will say I predicted who the killer is, but there were so many swerves that I wasn't annoyed.
Right.
It worked excellently, and Daniel Craig, man, that accent, fantastic. It's
Oh,
like a
okay.
southern, I mean, they call him Colonel Sanders sometimes as a joke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that accent, it works so well. I
Which
was
accent
shocked.
was it?
It was very southern, Colonel,
Oh,
Kentucky-ish,
right.
yeah.
Right, okay.
I mean, I was surprised that you liked it because I heard some people saying they didn't.
Yeah.
But whatever.
It was very, very interesting. Not a lot of films have done that.
What, the accent?
Well, in general,
Okay, fair enough.
yeah. Number 9 is The Lighthouse. Yeah.
You saw The Lighthouse.
I did.
Oh, my God.
Oh, what? You didn't see it?
No.
Oh, no!
No.
Damn it.
That doesn't release in a bigger release until January.
I got to see a limited release.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, so this is a fantastically shot film. It's in I think it's at a 199 or something.
Okay.
I'm very bad at that. So it's basically a complete square, all black and white, and so many shots, the cinematography resembles classic silent cinema. It is crazy good and bizarre. The plot goes to some very insane places, and honestly, one of the first references to my mind was The Shining. The almost paranoia-inducing film.
Right.
It's good, and please see it in January.
Yeah.
I think you'll like it.
Yeah.
Raccoon, we're gonna go.
Yeah, we need to go. Yeah, definitely.
Number 8 is Us.
Oh yeah. Us.
Or a very good way to talk about it is US.
Yeah.
Thinks it's not sold, but it doesn't need to be. The terrifying new horror by Jordan Peele that essentially shows that maybe the horrors are coming from inside the house. It's not outside invaders. And I think a lot of people need to realise that. And this film's good at educating on that. Yeah. It's so creepy at points, and I know some people don't like a certain element near the end, but I don't think it needs to make literal sense. I think that's kind of a stupid way to interpret it.
I think people got caught up on the wrong things.
Yes, definitely.
Right.
Not to say that if you didn't like it, you're wrong. I'm just saying I've seen certain people jump to certain conclusions, and somehow they're adding 1 and 1 and it's equaling 3, and they're going, yeah, that's correct. But yeah, go on.
And I really loved the image on the TV of, I believe it was either Nixon or Reagan, I can't remember who, one of those arseholes, doing the hands around the world thing.
Yeah.
Friends around the world, and it is so beautiful. It's got so much in that one scene. It's amazing. If you need to, do some history on that because it's beautiful.
Definitely.
My number 7 is Joker, the Todd Phillips, very inspired by a Scorsese film.
Do you want me to say it?
King
of Comedy.
Oh yeah, King of Comedy and a bit of Taxi Driver.
That's basically Taxi Driver.
Oh.
It is very similar. But it takes a very good working class edge to it, which I really like.
Definitely, yeah.
And it's very supportive of protesters and quite negative. I don't think it goes enough in the direction of anti-establishment, but it does enough. Especially for a mainstream film. I would not expect that. So many mainstream films are always the establishment and, the baddies are the ones who won't change.
Yeah.
This one, it's a good look, and I'm happy with it. I didn't expect it. Number 6, and this is my second foreign film, I believe, which is One Cut of the Dead.
Yeah.
The excellent Japanese zombie film, which...
Don't spoil nothing.
I won't. I will not. It's surprising and extremely gripping, and when it gets to the certain point, which Raccoon knows about, you get more intrigued. Yeah, it's one to watch, and I think it actually came out 2017. We only got it this year.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so out on DVD, Blu-rays stuff. Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Pick it up.
Yeah, definitely. Number 5 is the only English film I believe I have on this list.
That's a shame.
Yeah, which is In Fabric.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Giallo-inspired horror that's mainly set around, let's say, consumerism. And it directly does not blame the consumer themselves, which is good. It's got a fantastic performance by Gwendolyn Christie. She is haunting in this film. And at first I wasn't even sure it was her.
Oh, wow.
And some excellent performances. I think there's a bit on the midway where it needs a better transition to a second point.
Yeah.
But other than that, I loved it. And I think if you like giallo films or if you just like weird surreal, go for it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this film was on one of my top to watch. I unfortunately didn't watch it because something came up. I'm glad someone is talking about this film, though. Excellent
soundtrack as well, by the way. It's creepy. I love it. If you know stuff like the soundtrack from Suspiria, that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Done by Goblin.
Yes.
Or The Goblin, or Goblins.
I was going to say, is it Silent Hill creepy?
That goes too rocky.
Oh, okay.
Well, with some games.
Clock Tower has a kind of similar soundtrack, doesn't it?
To the first game of Silent Hill, I would say, because Silent Hill 1 and... Silent Hill 2 is a little bit more trip-hop beat convention, and then the third film goes a little... third game and fourth game start to turn a little bit more to hip-hop rock. To some extent.
Okay, yeah. Makes sense.
Just for clarification.
Okay, so number 4, actually is also an English film. I kind of forgot it was English.
Oh, fair enough.
The Favourite.
Oh, yes.
Which is
I forgot about that film.
the only film by Yorgos Lanthimos that I actually like. I liked Half of Lobster, and I don't like any of his other films. This one, the whole thing was good. Mm-hmm. I liked the hilarious piss take of royals and just anything to do with monarchy. It's hilarious, and just the bit of what people try and do just for a little bit of power.
It's actually true.
Yeah, it's amazing. And that dance scene.
Yeah,
oh my god!
I love it. It's so anachronistically horrible and perfect. It's great.
Oh, God.
Number 3 is a South Korean film called Parasite.
Yeah.
By Bong Joon-ho, who's directed stuff like The Host and Snowpiercer, and what was the one on Netflix called? I always forget that one.
Oh, is it the one with the pig?
Yes.
Ojak or something like that?
Oshka or something.
Oshka, something like that, yeah.
That, and all of his films have had a very subversive, very anti-capitalism ring to them.
That man hates capitalism.
He does. And it showed even more in this, where you see how much the working class suffers and end up being pushed against each other by the rich. And it is horrifying, comedic, and it speaks too much truth. So, if you have an inkling of left wing in you, you'll probably like it. Yeah.
Can I quickly say as well, I didn't see the film, but can I say that poster, the simplicity of that poster and how it just encapsulates from what you've said and what I understand of the film so perfectly. It's literally just a bunch of characters just standing there with their eyes censored.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
And
it's amazing.
Seemingly seems to be someone laying on the grass.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't see their face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay.
It works even more with the film as well, like when you've seen, so yeah, good.
Okay.
That is a great poster. I almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Under the Silver Lake, which up until almost recently was my number 1. This film is a fantastic mixture of trying to make order from chaos and the shallowness of Hollywood. It is beautiful and a piss take and absurd at points. Almost like, I mean, a lot of my films on this list are, but it's probably why I love it so much. And if you haven't heard of it, you need to see it. And if you hate Hollywood at the moment, which I do, because mainstream cinemas mostly sucked, please watch this film.
Yes.
It's so great. And Andrew Garfield is great at being an obsessive creep.
Yeah.
I will say that. And my number 1, which is an almost 4-hour-long Chinese film, An Elephant Sitting Still. It's essentially about 4 people living in this block of flats whose lives suck so much, and everyone they care about, they have issues with, and there's so much pain in the film.
Yeah.
Everyone's almost depressed, and there's so much suicide in there.
Oh.
And like, if you are very susceptible to negative thoughts, maybe don't watch this. I'm warning. But it's probably got one of the most beautiful endings I've seen in a film in years.
Right.
I actually kind of cried at this film. So, yeah, it's great.
I've not heard of this one.
Well, same.
It's been on my watch list for a while, and it came out a little while ago. I can't remember exactly. But it's haunting, and it almost being 4 hours with what number 4 means in China.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even stronger.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. It's just shy of 4, which, yeah.
Oh, no.
And I do want to say a little thing. The director himself did commit suicide shortly after the film was made due to things with his producers.
Jeez.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
and yeah, it's hard to talk about for I think obvious reasons, and it's a beautiful film. That's kind of what I wanted to say.
Is it on Netflix?
No. It was a limited release, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think it's on Blu-ray and DVD now.
Okay.
I'm not sure because
Right,
I need to get myself a copy if it is.
Yeah, big time. I want to see this film.
Yeah. And my worst of.
Oh.
So I saw this, I think, 2 days ago, maybe 3 days ago.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Rise of Skywalker, Star Wars Episode 9. This film was a piece of shit. I don't know how J.J. Abrams has any respect as a filmmaker, because it's a mess of nothing and... Alright, the first way to understand this is, to even know the beginning of the film, you have to know of something that happened in the Star Wars Cross Fortnite event.
What?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
what was that?
A speech by Palpatine. Yeah, the start of the film references that speech. So if you don't know that, then you're kind of confused at the start of the film already.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the start of how horrible this film is.
If you're gonna do some bullshit like that, why don't you at least play an advert for Fortnite? Make that a standard thing.
I don't know.
Disney would have the power to do that. They pretty much take over about 80% of cinemas round about this time anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's the start of the horrible, and it just gets worse and worse. And when there's these little highlights like Babu Frick, or...
What is that, sorry?
It's a tiny little droid engineer, and he's adorable, and he's the best thing in the film, and he's without blame. Don't blame the film on him. He doesn't deserve it.
Okay.
And it was sad to see the sheer amount of new characters thrown in that do nothing, and old characters who are thrown away to do nothing, as they just bring in old characters again to do everything. It sucks. It's shit. Yeah, The Last Jedi was great, and this sucks. Fuck you, fanboys.
I mean, I've seen people laughing about this film online.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine the amount of damage this has probably done for Disney, because they tried so hard to get people to watch this film. People are going to see this film, of course.
Oh, yeah.
It's a big film. Pat of the Two Best Friends Play, he took a photo in his cinema about to watch Star Wars.
Yeah.
Empty screen.
Yeah, I was literally saying to Al before we started recording that my screen, there was maybe a quarter of the seats full. That was it. And that was the night it came out.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the cinemas is usually packed as well.
Yeah, especially for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, my number one honorable mention had a fucking packed screening, and we had 30 people to watch this film. Jeez, man.
Oh no.
I mean, who's to really blame? Disney. But good.
Yeah.
Shots fired.
Big time. Is that you done for films?
Yeah, that is me done.
I'll up next for films.
So I'll start with my honourable mentions. So there was a film called Second Act that came out really early this year. I think it was either late January or early February. I can't remember exactly. So this film is essentially about this. It's actually Jennifer Lopez stars in it. So she's the main character, and it's about her basically working as a normal retailer, and then basically a job comes up, but she really wants it, but she doesn't think she can get it because she hasn't got a degree.
Okay.
So I think it's someone in her family basically makes up a CV for her and sends it to the job. So she has to pretend that she knows all of that stuff that's on that CV, basically.
I think I saw from the trailer for that.
Yeah.
That's reminded me.
But yeah, it was a really fun and enjoyable film to watch. I definitely recommend it when it comes out on DVD or whatever. But it's fun.
Yeah, that's a nice twist on a classic setup.
Yeah, for a comedy as well.
Yeah, I'll give them that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my second one, people will probably hate me for this one, but I personally enjoyed this film, Dark Phoenix.
Okay. I forgot it came out this year.
Yeah, a lot of films were forgettable
Yeah.
this year, to be fair. The reason why I wasn't watching it much for the story. I was watching it
sorry,
more...
could you just come a bit
Oh
closer
yeah,
to the
sure,
mic?
sure
Yeah.
thing. Sorry. I was watching it more for the character herself.
Yeah.
So from what I picked up from it was basically Jean Grey with the Phoenix, the Phoenix essentially being some form of anger. So I quite like that concept of it, and I felt like it was just an interesting. I felt like that. Yeah, I felt like the concept was interesting of the Phoenix Force and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always like it when they don't make the Phoenix Force a giant interdimensional space fire, because I hate that.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. That was a good
And
idea.
I think the actress as well.
Oh yeah,
She,
Sophie Turner.
yeah, definitely. Great pick for the
Yeah,
character.
I agree.
think. Yeah.
Fun fact: they actually had to change the ending of it because it was the same ending as Captain Marvel, and Disney were like, "No, fuck that. This is our film. You have to change your ending."
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No.
Because they own both films now, technically.
Wow. Okay.
So.
Oh, okay. And then my final honourable mentions is Joker. So
Joker.
I did enjoy it. I thought the plot was interesting to see like Joker manifest as a character, but I felt like and actually eventually becoming like a feared villain in the end as well. The only thing I didn't fathom is like the hype towards the film.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I was just like, okay, it's not that hype.
I get the hype after. I never got the film, pre to the film being released.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess because it's Joker and people love the Joker without understanding him.
Yeah.
But
And then there was like weird media buzz that the film was going to turn people into like incel murderers or something. And it was like, what?
Oh, dear.
oh, me and Ferret went into watching that film with that intent. So when we
Yeah.
was walking the streets, we were like, "Who are we gonna kill tonight?"
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for my honourable mentions. So, best films. This isn't in any particular order, so I'm just going to say whatever it is.
Oh, fair enough.
So, first, I've got on my list is Avengers Endgame. I really enjoyed this film. All I've got to say is Thanos again.
Yeah.
The best character, I must say.
He's written so well.
Yeah.
Thanos movie 2.
Yeah, I just felt like it was such a good ending towards like the Avengers. Is it the trilogy, right?
Four films, aren't they?
Is it 4 films?
Fourth Avengers film, yeah.
I felt like it was just a good conclusion to that
Yeah.
Okay,
part, really. Okay, and then the second one is Aladdin.
Okay, I'm going to have to say I kind of enjoyed it too.
It's so good.
It wasn't as bad as it seems.
Yeah, that film got memed out of, but it was actually such
Yeah.
a good film.
And, I mean, the new song I didn't like, but yeah, it was fine.
I think Will Smith did a great job as the genie.
He got a bad rap and I didn't
Yeah.
get it. Yeah, me and my brother both sang along. So,
Hey!
yeah.
And then what number am I on? Third film, Dragon Ball Super Broly. I saw that at the beginning of the year. I loved this film. It was amazing. I love the new the new appearance of Broly, actually. He looks amazing. His backstory is much more interesting rather than the old one. Oh my god. The story is so pathetic for the old Broly, man. It's so stupid. Oh my god. But his appearance is great for the old one, but just the backstory is it's just dumb. It's really dumb. I'm glad he was non-canon, but now he's canon now, so I'm happy for the character.
That's the thing that I hear everyone saying about Dragon Ball Super Broly.
Yeah. He's so cool.
I'm glad that's true, and
Yeah.
I need to get around to it.
Oh, you haven't watched it yet?
Not yet,
Oh,
no.
okay. Alright, yeah, you should definitely get around to it, man. And then my next film is Gemini Man. A lot of people did not like this film. I enjoyed this film, okay? There's just a lot of...
Wow, you're in the minority there.
Yeah, I'm in the minority, yeah. But basically, I enjoyed it because... so it takes place after Henry, who's the main character that Will Smith plays as. He's an assassin that feels that he's getting old at his job, so he just wants to retire from it and just kind of live a normal life. But basically, they essentially create a clone of him to basically try to kill him off, essentially. I did like the concept of the cloning. I always liked the concept of that.
Yeah.
But the only thing I must say about the film, the CGI was terrible. It was terrible, I must say. I was like, oh, some parts I was like, oh, no, that's bad. That's really bad.
You know what the best part about this film is I don't know if it was Disney or someone, but whoever had I think it was Disney. They originally had the rights to this film or something like that, and they specifically waited so that the special effects would get better so they can make the film.
Oh,
Wow.
God.
So that says a lot when everyone goes, wow, the effects look terrible. Because, they have specifically been waiting for the effects to be as good as they are so they can make the film.
Right.
Despite the fact you watch the film Moon and it looks fantastic in terms of,
Oh, yeah.
what Gemini Man is about.
Godzilla King of Monsters is my next one. I enjoyed this film. I did talk about it on the previous podcast, so I'm not going to go into too much depth of why, but I did enjoy the returning character, King Ghidorah. I thought he was very
King Ghidorah?
Yeah.
However you want to say.
Yeah. I thought he was very intimidating as a villain, so I was glad to see him come back, to be fair.
I love the cinematography of the monsters. That was beautiful.
They were really cool.
Like, they were almost like gods. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it really was.
To me, it was like the only part of the film that was directed.
Fair enough.
But
Settle down.
because you can just kind of tell all them suits came in and said, right, we need this in the film. And he went, what?
That's actually true. And I'm glad that there was more monsters in it as well.
Why is our Godzilla franchise failing?
Oh, dear.
Is it because we don't know how to make a Godzilla film? Quote Joel Schumacher, I don't like Godzilla. I didn't understand it. I'm going to make a bunch of changes to make the film better.
That's a lot of fish.
Yeah, that's a lot of fish.
It's the best quote from the whole original film.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Okay, and then my most disappointing is Lion King. That was a joke and a half. I spoke about that on a previous podcast as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say the voice acting.
Oh my god, that's amazing.
God. Scar?
Who was Scar again?
I don't even know.
Does it matter? Okay.
No, it doesn't even matter anymore. But yeah, man. It's just so redundant and so stale. Like a piece of bread.
Boy.
I mean, the film kind of looked like a piece of bread anyway.
Yeah, you can say
Boy,
that.
put those quotes on the back of the DVD. Boy. Oh, I'm not surprised. I have a upcoming video I'm sure you're going to enjoy. I know YMS, Your Movie Sucks. His next main review is going to be on Lion King, so you're probably going to enjoy that.
Yep.
Almost hour 40, I guess, soon as what he's saying. Because he's going through all the interview footage to kind of pinpoint exactly what the hell went wrong.
Oh, great. I'm going to watch that.
So hopefully that comes up pretty soon, and I'll link it to you as soon as.
Yes, please.
Is that you done for films?
Yeah, that's me done for films.
Okay, it's me done for films. Wow, so many good films I watched this year. Wow, I was so hard for me to pick my favourites. I will clarify real quick though, joking aside, I was going to watch more of the films. The films you actually talked about, Ace, were films on my list which I didn't get to watch. I had some issues with Amazon messing me up.
Oh god.
So my list is unfortunately very short, but I will be talking about these podcasts on the next coming films. Sorry, I will be talking about these films on the next few podcasts coming up. So I'm going to start with my honorable mentions. We've already talked about this film, but I'm going to talk about it again. Joker.
Yeah.
This film was okay in my opinion. I thought it was decent enough. Joaquin Phoenix's performance was fantastic. I thought the last 30 minutes of this film was perfect, aside one scene, which I'll get into in a sec. Really love this film, what it was about and what it stood for, and everything in which it was kind of constructed and showed and kind of delivered. It didn't feel, in terms of the message and what it was about, it didn't feel like too in your face. It was just subtle enough, and I think that's why the film resonated with so many people, and why, you know, the joking about society is so prevalent. I really didn't like the generic story. I found it really annoying. I kind of predicted a lot of the plots. I thought it was a bit bizarre that they tried to add one twist into it.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, but that's obvious. You already like established that. I don't want to spoil anything. People haven't seen it. I really didn't like the shoehorning in of Batman. I absolutely hated that. You could have done it much better with like the few scenes in which they do it, but to ruin that perfect 30 minutes and just go Batman and then go back to that perfectly paced, fantastic final few scenes, I was just like, oh, come on, dude.
Don't worry, there'll be a raccoon cut coming soon.
Yeah, there's going to be a raccoon cut. So that was my number 2 honorable mention. Number 1, I got to give it to Gorillaz, Reject False Icons. Last film I saw this year. This is technically part documentary, part music video, part live performance, part making of the band Gorillaz over the course of, I think, about 3 years, recording the last 2 albums that came out in 2017 and 2018, being Humans and The Now Now. Very interesting film. It's essentially, you can kind of consider it just fan service for Gorillaz fans, but they do enough to make it quite an odd experience. Don't go into this film expecting to be taught about the Gorillaz. They expect you to know every song and every music video and every album. Yeah. Don't be that one lady who, when Snoop Dogg shows up, she gets confused. Despite singing to every other single song.
Oh no.
But the moment Snoop Dogg appears, she's like, what? Why? and then whoever she's with is explaining, yeah, he was on the new album. And it's like, how do you not know that? I mean, besides the crowd, people were singing, people were having fun. This is definitely a bit of a trip, this music video film, because it does show a lot of the inner workings in which, like, how they come up with songs. As you see, like, a lot of like more acoustics and rough recordings of some of the songs. You definitely get to see a lot of artists. Some kind of appear very briefly, like Danny Brown is just sitting on a crate and he's like, yeah, I got my teeth fixed, and that's all you see from Danny Brown. But then obviously you have Vince Staple, who's just being a comedian throughout of it. He's talking shit while playing his Nintendo Switch, saying how he's the best at FIFA or whatever, because Vince Staple talks mad shit about video games, that he's the best, and I don't think he is. But the performances themselves are pretty interesting because they kind of like splice and silhouette and blend like animation and footage with like the live performances, so you kind of get this weird trippy new music video out of it. It's really interesting, especially when it starts cutting between the different recordings of the same artist doing the same song, and it's very interesting to see like the costume change in and out, back and forth, which is kind of interesting. And some of the costumes some people are wearing is interesting. But there are some really nice moments as well. They pay respects to Bobby Womack, who passed away in 2014, who was on the Stylo song, so there's a nice tribute to him, as well as the other singer, I can't remember his name, he was on the first album. They pay a nice tribute to him, which is really nice because Damien Albarn, who's the lead singer of the band, he's kind of playing on the piano. He's looking at the footage that they recorded of the guy doing the bit, and he kind of looks up and go, "Oh, this is amazing! I've never seen this," you know. And he kind of stops playing the piano and was just watching it, which is nice. Some really nice stuff in it. This film's quite long as well. It's almost 2 hours.
Oh.
Oh, wow.
I think because it was a one night showing thing, I think they were just like, yeah, slap on an extra 30 minutes. So it was a bit strange when the credits came down and the film went on for another 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I wasn't complaining, but it was just like,
oh,
okay. But it was nice though. If you're a big fan of the Gorillaz, or you want to kind of get into them in some kind of weird... If you don't know anything about the Gorillaz, it probably work, because you'd be like, what the hell is going on? Who's this? Who's this green guy? You know, it'd be interesting. One thing I would like to point out is I do love how there's just one random scene when they're filming the Now Now, which has Ace from the Powerpuff Girls in the band. And I do like how it's simply explained by Jamie Hewlett as, so Murdoch, he gets put in prison, so then they get Ace. I think he's a good addition to the band. That's it. That's the explanation to why he's there. That's
amazing.
That's it. And you don't really need the explanation. Just Ace from the Powerpuff Girls is now in the Gorillaz. This is the society we live in. You know what I mean?
Sometimes you gotta love it.
You gotta love it. I do love... There are lots of moments that are really enjoyable in this film. So I want to recommend that as my honorable mention. My favourites, I only got 4, unfortunately. Number 4 is going to The Favourite. Fantastic film. This is one of the first films I watched this year. One of only 2 films that released in cinema that I cared about. Fantastic film. I love the cinematography of this. I love how experimental it technically was, despite being technically a period piece.
Yeah.
I love, as well as blending like elements of like love and power, like you said as well. I thought the performances were fantastic. I absolutely adored and loved this film. It's definitely a film I don't think everyone's going to enjoy, obviously, but I absolutely love this film. This was definitely, masterful stuff. Number 3 is going to Us, Jordan Peele's Us. Absolutely love this film. I'm probably one of those people who gets it, unlike some people who just don't really get it to some extent. Once again, I'm not saying if you don't get it, you're a bad person or something like that, but fantastically performed film that had a lot of really interesting ideas and concepts behind it. It definitely felt like a very original and fresh horror thriller film, which you're kind of starting to see the influence of Jordan Peele kind of rub off on like Blumhouse films, to mention films like Ma and other things. That's kind of like the new way we do horror films now, which you get your black person and you make the horror personal or very relatable in some sense. And I do appreciate how Jordan Peele made a film he wanted to make. There are a few things I didn't like it. Like, I can tell there was a bit of studio meddling, because I'd imagine they watched it and went, we don't understand this. You need to explain some things. Which is understandable, but I just respect this film for what it is. And I absolutely love the fact that Tim Heidecker is in this film, of Tim and Eric fame. Yeah. Of all the people to appear, it's just like, oh, it's Tim Heidecker. Number 2 is going to Under the Silver Lake.
Yes.
Tiny clarification. I missed 10 seconds of this film because my Blu-ray or my PS3 decided it didn't want to play it or something like that. I don't know what happened. Hopefully I didn't miss the most amazing scene ever in that 10 seconds, but fantastic film about conspiracy and paranoia leading to, greater ideas of like whether everything is like a code or a sequence. Andrew Garfield delivers a fantastic performance. I was thrilled and scared throughout all of this film. I didn't know what was going to happen. I absolutely love how this film ends and what it all kind of boils down to, because the main plot can be simply boiled down to girl I like goes missing, where did she go?
Yeah.
There is something bigger and darker down this rabbit hole, literally. I love that aspect. I love the fact that this film, especially coming from the director of It Follows, I love the fact that he didn't feel pressure to be like, I gotta make It Follows too, or
They Follow.
Yeah, They Follow. He did his own film, and his vision came true in this film. This film also is one of the more disturbing and creepy films when you really think about it. It really gets under your skin, given what they imply, and it's quite horrible, but absolutely fantastic film. I highly recommend it. Number one film has to go to One Cut of the Dead for me personally. This film, simply put, is a testament to the art of filmmaking. 100%. If you love film, if you've ever made film, I personally relate to this film big time as someone who has filmed small budget, no budget films. I can relate to everything that happens in this film. I get it. I was laughing because I got it. Because I've been there in certain senses. It's a very cleverly written, structured, and performed film, which I will not spoil, but it is worth watching. Go into this film not knowing anything about it. Just watch One Cut of the Dead, and you'll understand why it's such an important film. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap up my films. We are moving on to music. Ace.
I have nothing.
Owl.
Nothing.
So it's me. I think I need to get a quick sip of water, because this is going to be a big one for the most part for me. Oh, God. So music, I think, personally, was the best medium this year.
Okay.
I listened to over 40 albums this year.
Damn. Oh.
And it was really hard just for me to compile to just 8, which being my favorites. But I'm going to do honorable mentions first. And number 3 is going to go to, oddly, one of my favorite titles, despite just because of how long it is. It's Kakyo Okaji, Japanese ambient, environmental, and new age music, 1980 to 1990.
Okay, you're sending that to me instantly, because that sounds amazing, just from the title.
This is a compilation of Japanese ambient, environmental, and new age music from the already said time periods. Fantastically selected, really relaxing, cool. It was nice to really, and I don't want to sound pretentious here, to kind of expand my horizon of music, because obviously a lot of Japanese music has kind of been on the up, especially the more older music. And the label or studio, whoever put this compilation together, first of all, fantastic, have really been kind of like digging. They really know their stuff. You definitely get a nice introspective sample of these kinds of sounds, especially coming from this especially coming from this country. Really lovely, relaxed, chilled music. So I would absolutely recommend that. Try get it on vinyl if you can, because that is rare now for some reason. Number 2 is going to let's see if I can pronounce this. Otakoboki Beaver with Ita Kame Hits. This band is essentially one of the hardest punk bands out of Japan right now. This is kind of their pseudo debut album / compilation / new material compilation of their previous 2 releases EP. Yet the thing is less than 30 minutes long, because it is that punk. This album goes in. These girls are screaming. These girls are playing. These girls are going in. This is a fantastic record which has a lot of passion. It also kind of dabbles between the lines of like femininity as well as being hard as hell for the most part. So I would highly recommend this if you want to hear some punk music sung by Japanese girls who do not play. And my number 1 honorable mention is going to go to a live album. That's going to be Idols, A Beautiful Thing. Idols live. I can't remember the place. They're live in France. This is a recording of one of my favorite punk bands, a live recording. This album goes in. I'm surprised they haven't released visuals for this, because some of the stuff that's being said and going on that I've seen in music videos, I'm like, why would you not release this as a full thing. There are points where people are getting on stage. There are points when people are just moshing. It gets to the point where like the main guitarist and the lead vocalist are being essentially carried through the crowd while there's about 8 people from the audience just on stage. It gets that crazy, even to the point where lead singer is saying, yeah, there's going to be no fucking bar fight tonight, because the Idols is all about positivity. He starts the set by saying, you know, it's all about love tonight, man. Despite the fact that they talk about, you know, very interesting and introspective concepts like male toxicity, feminism, the current state of British politics, as well as other mass affairs, and they basically play all the hits. It's really nice to hear an audience, let alone a French audience, like screaming a lot of the lyrics, you know, like, you know, mother, fuck her, and all that kind of stuff. Because their songs go in, as well as like songs like Television, which has that very great chorus line, which is, if someone talk to you the way you do to you, I'll put their teeth through. Love yourself. They don't play. Very angry but positive, and it definitely comes through on this record. So I would highly recommend that after you listen to the first albums, of course. Favorites best, I have 8. First is going to go to Pop with Morbid Stuff. Really great. I'm drawing it blank for some reason. Punk, post-rock band album, which definitely deals with a lot of very interesting stuff. It definitely has a very old school kind of 90s-ish feel in terms of the subject matter, essentially, whether it's talking about relationships, breakups, you know, the past, the friendships. I absolutely loved the pacing of this album, and it doesn't really mess around. It definitely kind of has a very visceral kind of like speed to it, but also is very poignant, and it's very catchy as well, very sing-along-ish to some extent. I can't remember the name of the song, but there is one song where the lead singer is basically singing, just because you're sad again, it doesn't make you special. You know, so it's okay. some really great stuff like that. They don't mess around, but it has some really nice moments in it. Number 7 is going to go to Danny Brown with You Know What I'm Saying. This is definitely Danny Brown's technically more stripped back, straight rap album that he's released over the last few years. This is his 4th album. This is Danny Brown essentially established, kind of cementing himself in the rap industry, and kind of very quotable in this album for the most part. He is very quotable. The only downside to this album, the first 2 songs, Charge Up and Theme Song, not the most amazing songs. They're kind of a weak start. Still enjoyable. Danny Brown is lyrically strong throughout the album. Dirty Laundry is a really great song. Essentially, Danny Brown talking about the past and maybe hooking up with someone and literally being like a very dirty kind of sense. There are some great lines. Once again, there's so many quotables in this album. Like, what's the one where he says... you know, Papa was a Rolling Stone, so I sold rocks to him, you know, and stuff like that. We get 3 Tears featuring Run the Jewels, LP, and Killer Mike, who feature on this song, production by JPEG Mafia, who does the production. This song sounds weird. It sounds like some kind of audio is being rewound as people shouting in some weird... It's a very bizarre song. The chorus itself doesn't even make sense, with it literally being 3 tears and a bucket. Fuck it. I don't care about nothing. Everyone is great on this song, particularly Killer Mike, who literally starts his verse by saying, I don't give a fuck about giving a fuck. You know, he
Brilliant.
Oh, what's it?
You know, he goes on to say, you know, he doesn't give a fuck about Trump. He goes on to, there's a very funny moment where he even says, where one voice says, you know, would you steal for me, nigga? And he says, if it's goddamn mine, you know, it's like, would you kill for me, nigga? Bitch, you out your goddamn mind. You know, some really great stuff as well. I do like a lot of the other songs on this album, especially, I'm trying to remember the name of it. Sorry, I have to remember the track list, like Best Life, which Danny Brown essentially reflects on his past and kind of talks about his upbringing and where he's come from. It is a very emotional and lovely song, which has like a nice kind of melody to it. I use this for one of the videos of the episode, and I particularly like the way this album ends with the song Combat, which is a very odd song. It has like this weird saxophone repeated sample, and you know, it kind of almost starts with Danny Brown saying, you know, I can talk a cat off I could talk a cat off the back of a fish truck, and essentially talking about the streets and how dangerous it is with this very interesting sample where this guy's talking and he's like, yeah, I've seen dynamite on the street. I've seen all these kinds of crazy things you never thought you would have seen. It kind of adds to the past of Danny Brown, and even in a creepy sense, although it's comedic, it even ends with this guy saying, pretty soon they're going to steal the damn atom bomb. And as much as that's funny, it's unfortunately kind of true. If gangs and people on the streets who want to kill themselves are doing all this kind of crazy stuff, getting all these kinds of weapons and stuff, yeah, that's unfortunately true. Yeah, they probably would grab the atom bomb to some extent. Let's move on to my audio, my number 6, which is going to Brockhampton with Ginger, or Smells Like Ginger. This is an emotional album. This is a mood album. This is a feeling album. The boys are upset on this album. They are looking for some kind of guidance, possibly even God to some extent. The album starts with No Halo, which is a very soft-core song which essentially talks about where they are and kind of the position they're in. It kind of does transition to one of my favorite songs of the year, which is Boy Bye, which is a little bit more of an upbeat song, which I absolutely love. It does have some other songs which I'm trying to remember. See, the problem is I can never write music. I can write on everything but music, and I always lose my train of thought. Songs like Dearly Departed are very interesting. One of the most stripped back songs, and one of the more personal songs, which essentially has the group kind of reflecting on very dark points in their life, even with one of them, I can't remember his name right now, essentially getting so worked up and so angry about a situation because, real quick for context, there was a previous member of the band. He left over a certain situation, possibly involving a shooting to some extent. Him getting so worked up about this that he basically just slams the fucking mic on the floor and walks out because he's that fucking upset about this shit. So it shows some real emotion on this album. And this album is very emotional, and it does have some very great hooks. It has some very great melodies, and I absolutely love this album. Very great. Number 5 is going to possibly one of my favorite titled albums, which is coming from The Comet Is Coming, Trust in the Life Force of the Deep Mystery.
Damn.
This is jazz / rock / electronic fusion trio band delivering some, as I said, jazzy electronic rock based music. These guys go in. If you want to hear a guy play saxophone, this is the album you want to hear. This guy kills it. I watched a live set of this guy. This guy is in the air more than he is on the ground while he's playing. This album goes in. It definitely has a little bit of a psychedelic kind of almost hip-hop-ish vibe. Very relaxing, very fast-paced, very energetic album. Just songs like Summon the Fire, which have this fantastic saxophone next to an almost like electronic beat. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely love this album. It's a very short listen. Absolutely love this. Number 4 is going to Matt Moss with Plastic Anniversary. By far one of the most interesting albums this year, period. Because the album itself, not only does it celebrate the 25th anniversary of the duo as a music duo and in a relationship, it also, everything on this album was composed using plastic.
Oh.
Every sound was used making plastic.
What, like improvised instruments and stuff?
No, plastic.
Wow. Okay,
Just
all right.
plastic. No, nothing was used other than plastic on this album.
Okay.
It is interesting. I mean, the first song starts off literally with the cleverly titled Breaking Bread, which essentially combines sounds of breaking and destroying vinyl discs using vinyls from the band Bread. So very clever. The Screaming Pill, which is by far one of the most frightening songs on this album, which also reminiscently sounds like Lavender Town from Pokemon. It's a very horrific sound, which honestly sounds like balloons possibly rubbing together in this very manic way, almost to emulate saxophones in some sense. There are other songs like which they use like Riot Shields as well, which kind of make this very odd kind of bassy sound you wouldn't expect from Riot Shields.
Yeah.
And even this album itself ends, which I gotta find the name of it, the Plastic's Fear, which is a very interesting album in which the duo essentially recreates real life in that they create a scenery from the beach.
Okay.
From the sea, from the sand, from the eagles. It's all recreated with plastic. And if I were to play it to you, you would think that was just a recording from the seaside, but no. And it's very interesting because that song itself makes a very interesting statement about plastic and what it does for the environment and how plastic is so fake and how it can essentially, statements about like the environment and how far like fakeness and replicating goes. So very interesting stuff. I'd highly recommend it if you want to hear a very odd and weird experience. It's definitely up there with one of my favorite things. Number 3 is going to Freddie Gibbs and Madlib with Bandana. The duo are back after 5 years. Madlib on the beats, Freddie Gibbs on the rapping. This album goes in. This album is essentially kind of like a victory lap almost for Freddie Gibbs after his past situations, and it's essentially him really feeling himself and kind of being very political and essentially doing what Freddie Gibbs does best, kind of cementing himself as one of the better rappers right now. I love the fact that this album starts off weirdly enough with a robotic Japanese sounding voice basically talking about how this is Bandana and how it's very bizarre. I can't really quote it, but it's very strange where he's essentially, when this guy, this voice essentially saying, remember only SD cards up, and all that kind of stuff. It's a very interesting album. It has some fantastic beats and melodies. Interesting enough, Madlib, who only exclusively mixes and makes music via vinyl, it's the first time he ever did it via digital as an iPad. So given that, it comes off pretty damn well. Freddie Gibbs himself is rapping about a lot of very interesting stuff. He goes on about how he doesn't like the fact that the government is, as he says, cock-blocking niggas from seeing their families, as well as referring to Donald Trump's Twitter as kitty litter to some extent.
Oh, wow.
He doesn't care. It has some great features. Killer Mike is on one of the songs, as well as Pusha T, who delivers some great lines. Pusha T has a very interesting line where he says how Reagan gave him the visual, but Obama gave him the keys, which is essentially referring to the fact that Pusha T was invited to the White House during Obama's presidency, despite the fact that Pusha T was a criminal, technically speaking, as well as, I'm trying to think of, there's another line, the song Real, which has a really very interesting chorus line where it kind of sums up kind of how society is right now, where Freddie Gibbs essentially says, shit's so real, gotta use fake names. But also kind of implying that with the even darker subject matter of every time I sleep, dead faces occupy my brain. Kind of going back to his past. And I absolutely love this album. It's a fantastic album which definitely deals with a lot of very interesting subject matters. It does definitely feel like a kind of like an adventure, kind of fantasy kind of thing. But it's definitely strong and up there. Number 2 is going to Little Sims with Grey Area. By far one of the best British female rappers, MCs out there. Little Sims does not care in the sense of some of the songs. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. Very personal album. This album mainly focuses on a relationship that recently broke up, where she essentially does confront and kind of get all her feelings and all her emotions out on the field about this certain relationship, as well as kind of re-empowering herself, re-understanding herself with songs like Boss, where she's literally saying things like, I'm a boss in a fucking dress and stuff like that. But there's also other nicer, softer melodies as well, like the song Selfish, which I'm going to talk about later on. But then you also get very interesting kind of comedic songs like 101 FM, which essentially talks about her past growing up in like kind of council flats. There's a very funny line where she talks about how, afternoons playing Mortal Kombat and Crash Bandicoot, and you hear like a voice in distant goes, done no classics. Really
That's so
great
cool.
stuff. Very short album, but very personal, very poignant. Really love this album. And number 1 is going to Tyler, the Creator, with Igor. By far one of the best albums he's delivered. Very definitely one of the weirder albums he's released. It essentially is about the life cycle of a relationship, and it's very interesting in how it's done. It's very accurate, and it goes through literally all the emotions, and I absolutely love this album. It's very poignant, very sad, very heavy. Tyler, the Creator isn't even really rapping on this album that much for the most part, but it's more about like the emotions and that. I mean, the album starts off just with like this one note tone, and it goes into like Igor's theme. It kind of goes through to songs like Earthquake, which essentially talks about the realization of the understanding of thinking that you are in love, to the relationship kind of breaking down, as well as kind of realizing the situation isn't quite right. It kind of coming to a very bad situation for the most part, and then kind of ending with, literally the song as it said, "Are We Still Friends?" The instrumentals and the sound of this album, as I've already said, are very interesting and definitely out there for the most part. And I absolutely love this album. It is unique. It should win Best Album regardless. Looking at the Grammy nominations is a joke because it's all the same. But yeah, this album is really special and really important. It's honestly one of the better, in terms of when people talk about like love songs being like generic and bad, this is not one of those albums. But those are my top 10s.
I need that as a playlist.
What?
All of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I need that.
I will link them to you.
Thank you.
I mean, obviously, I think highly of my list, but
Yeah.
I would say I think there's enough for everyone.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
definitely.
EPs, I want to run through really quickly. EPs being shorter things. I've only got best and favorites for this, but I've got 5. Number 5 is going to Daphne with Sizzling. Daphne, who has, I can't remember the artist's proper name. They have like about 8 different names. Very small EP of really groovy, funky dance tracks, especially the title song Sizzling. I can't remember the lead singer in this, but I do love the fact how she sings this in a very classic, almost disco funk kind of vibe, and there's a nice arpeggio where she's going, "You are all I got." It's very classic and groovy, so I absolutely love this EP. Definitely has some slightly more like techno-y dance kind of vibes. Number 4 is going to Oliver Tree with Do You Feel Me? Oliver Tree kind of sounds like, well, first of all, I'll say Oliver Tree is almost like if we lived in an alternate dimension, he would be in the place of Lil Nas X, given his look, the kind of music he makes. Because Oliver Tree has a very interesting kind of mixture. He kind of sounds like old school Arctic Monkeys with a little bit more of a danceable modern day vibe to it. He's a very interesting guy. If you look at the guy, you'll be like, what the hell was going on with this look? But I absolutely love this EP because it definitely is very poignant. It kind of talks about heartbreak, kind of talks about relationship hurts in a slightly more comedic way. The song Alien Boy, for some reason, lands on this album. I'm not really sure why, because it came out last year, the song. But it's still a great track, and I do love how this guy sings and how he kind of presents himself. He kind of has a weird kind of relationship with being killed and kind of making metaphors between, breaking up or kind of losing a friend, kind of in some senses literally dying or getting hit by a car, as he's been hit by a car so many times in his music videos. So a really interesting EP, which I'd highly recommend him. Number 3 is going to Mr. Wazo with Rhythm Fat. Interesting EP from Mr. Wazo, who's one of the most insane French producers out there. Interesting collection of songs, whether he be sampling really odd beats or the main song I really love on this album is, I can't even remember its name, but it features Farah, who is an Italian singer. So we get this really weird old school French dance song with an Italian almost spoken word rap verse throughout the whole of it. Sounds really fantastic, but I absolutely love this song. Heavy beats, wonky whack. If you like people like Charlie XCX, you think that's bad, listen to Wazo because he did a song for her. If you like that kind of almost PC-ish music kind of stuff that's just insane, like Mr. Wazo is the only artist I can think of where his music sounds bad but good at the same time. It technically shouldn't work, his music. It sounds like, sometimes you listen to it, you're like, it sounds awful, but then you like, it maybe intentionally sounds awful. I don't know. It's odd. Number 2 is going to Gorilla Toss with What Would the Odd Do? Psychedelic, post-punk, electronic band, Gorilla Toss back with an EP, one of my favorite artists, regardless, as of right now. Really fun, odd album. Obviously, the lead track on this is What Would the Odd Do, which essentially is kind of going on some kind of mad mental place, talking about what would the odd do, whatever the odd is. You got a song about plants, which is great. It talks about all the benefits and all the joys of plants, as well as a lot of really great rock and kind of punk verses. If you don't like women who kind of have a very distinct or slightly shriekish voice, maybe don't listen to this. If you're not a fan of people like Melt Banana, I guess, maybe don't listen to this. But really fun, lovely EP. But my number 1 has to go to Kera Kera Bonita with Civilization 1. This album sounds like so many things. I'm like, Kerrigan Pinito are constantly changing up their style, but this album legit sounds like some spiritual, ancient, tribe, cultural music in which Sarah, lead singer, is just singing over, or as if she's part of this culture. At points, it honestly sounds very 90s, 80s video game-ish, but it also kind of has, once again, that very spiritual kind of primitive vibe to it. It's very electronic, and it has that sound, that unique sound that, why I mentioned video games, sounds like it's like an ancient ruins or something like that. It kind of has that vibe, and it kind of does talk about like civilization or a lost civilization or a higher power, a higher spirit in that kind of sense throughout all 3 tracks. And absolutely love the vibe. I can't listen to one song on this EP. I have to listen to the whole thing because it just flows so perfectly. And I'm so excited for Civilization 2 or whatever the new album's going to sound, because if they're going to take a theming like this on the next album, going from K-pop, dance, Japanese hybrid to slightly more punkish, electronic to this, these guys are already one of the most exciting artists right now. And there's only 3 of them from England, mind you.
It's amazing.
Yeah, music videos. I know, I've been talking for too long, haven't I? Don't worry, I've only got 14 more. But I'm going to be really quick with these ones because obviously you can't talk too much when it comes to music videos and songs, I guess. So with music videos, I have best and favorites. I have 10, but I'm going to breeze through them really quickly because I want you to go watch these music videos because they're fantastic. Number 10 is going to Slow Tie with Nothing Great About Britain. Slow Tie, UK rapper, has very interesting political opinions, and they are definitely seen in this music video, whether he is a news reporter following a very oldish looking woman with grey hair, pearls, and a blue suit on, or whether he himself is pulling out Excalibur the sword, doing some kind of drive-by driving, and everyone's like, yeah, he's the new king of England, and that kind of stuff. And there's another great scene where he's essentially kind of like knighting, you know, specifically guys in black hoodies, you know, just knighting one after the next in the estate. Very funny stuff, and a very interesting song as well. His album is called Nothing Great About Britain, in case you're wondering, just in case there's confusion. Number 9 is going to Little Sims with Selfish. Fantastic music video, which does use some very great camera trickery, where it has both Little Sims and the I can't remember her name, the singer who sings the chorus, essentially in multiple places at once. It's like a continuous panning shot of these 2 people in different predicaments, and it's not even done in a, oh, I can see the seam in which you've kind of spliced them together. It looks seamlessness. So really fantastic music video, which kind of carries the point of the song very nicely. Number 8 is going to Little Big with Rock, Paper, Scissors. Basically, Russian band Little Big, they're dressed as dogs. And they're being dogs in this music video. And it is funny the amount of stuff they do, whether it's making fun of Kim Kardashian or Lil Nas X, or literally humping guys' legs and peeing all over the place. Really fun music video, especially when the dogs get involved. I'd highly recommend this music video. I can't say too much about the song, but the music video is fantastic. Number 7, going to Gold Link with You Say. I want to go to this party, despite the fact it ends with some kind of vampire-ish thing going on. The camera work is all over the place, but I think that's intentional. Really fantastic music video. Very classic-ish music video. Definitely kind of has that party nightclub-ish vibe. Number 6 is going to Flying Lotus with When the Fire Starts. Very creepy music video, which features David Lynch of all people. I think I sent you this music video, I think.
Possibly, yeah.
Basically, you see a bunch of children in some kind of weird post-apocalyptic place. They're dressed as some kind of animal. This fox creature thing rolls up in a wheelchair and starts talking. It's creepy, but it's very well done. Should I mention it was directed by the guy who did Salad Fingers?
Nice.
So yeah, that's probably gonna make a lot of sense to some people. Number 5 is going to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard with Psy Boogie. This music video is the lost episode of Doctor Who from the 1960s. Essentially, lead singer is in some weird Dalek-esque contraption where he's covered in keyboards and he's playing music, and they're just basically putting in wires and all the keyboards are everywhere. It's stupid. It's very reminiscent of Doctor Who in terms of villain of the week. Very funny stuff. I'd highly recommend watching that. A very long music video, but it definitely has a nice vibe to it for the most part. Number 4 is going to Toro y Moi with Ordinary Pleasures. I think I showed you this music video as well.
Yeah.
Very hipstery-ish, kind of like, indie fake-ish kind of music video, kind of like, we're going to do it in one take, and we're going to show you that it's all fake and that kind of stuff. Very funny, introspective music video on kind of making a comment on like the music industry and how people present themselves. Really good stuff. Number 3, got to give it to Powder with New Tribe. This music video was edited by the duo and animation studio that did parts of Pop Team Epic. So this music video is going to be weird and all over the place and crazy. Essentially, the main plot of this is a girl who works in a fish market can't decide whether she wants to quit her job or stay.
Oh, right, okay.
And it makes some very interesting references. There are some stuff that's like visually very unappealing and stupid, but there's like some weird moments where it's like, wow, how did they even accomplish that? Why is that cinematically so good looking? Really fun music video, and I'd recommend that. Number 2 is going to Junglewood Casino. Fantastic dancing, performancing, one take. Oof, energy with this music video. Highly recommend this one. And my number 1 is going to Chemical Brothers with We Got to Try. Basically, a dog essentially drives a Formula 1 car and then blasts off to space.
Wow. I think you showed me this.
I did show you this one. Really good music video. Definitely feels like a short film. This music video carries so much emotion for how silly it is, and it's technically very accurate in how they do it as well.
Yeah.
They give the dog like robotic arms in order to drive the car.
Yeah.
It's very fun, and I love how the music video matches the song, which has a very epic and operatic vibe, where it's literally like, I know we can make it if we try, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's very classic, and I wouldn't expect any less from the Chemical Brothers, because all their music videos are fantastic.
Yeah.
Songs is the last category I have for music, but I'm going to be very quick with this one, obviously. Favorites, I got to give a shout out to Dos Monos with In 20XX. This is a Japanese rap duo who essentially kind of had their first EP. This song is very odd, but I like it because it's odd and it's very interesting. You're not really going to hear a song like this. I don't 100% understand what they're saying because I haven't looked into it, but it definitely has a great flow. These guys have a lot of potential. It's a really great song. It has like this very kind of odd like trumpet kind of bombastic kind of vibe to it, as well as this weird kind of bit where like they're kind of making this very odd noises as that. It's very interesting. They're very promising, and I wanted to mention that. Number 4, going to Tame Impala with It Might Be Time. One of the newest songs to be released, coming off their new album, which isn't going to be released till like March for some reason. Despite the fact they've been teasing this album since October. But It Might Be Time is not necessarily the greatest song here, but it's what it's about and how it leaves you thinking, because it's essentially about kind of time passing. And as the song suggests, and as the chorus goes on, the lead singer is essentially saying, it might be time to face it. You're not as fun as you were. You're not as cool as you were. No one even knows why you showed up here anymore. You might as well embrace it. It kind of taps into the whole idea of, or that kind of theming of maybe you had that one friend who still think life is still a joke or hasn't quite grown up. And it kind of goes into that. And it kind of has a very odd kind of like bombastic kind of heavy bass vibe to it. But I think the words and what it's about is very poignant, and it kind of was very interesting to listen to. Number 3 is going to Frank Ocean with DHL, which is the postal service. Frank Ocean basically talking about his life on this song, talking about a package he got from DHL, enjoying it. It's a very odd song. It kind of has a kind of beat breakdown towards the end where it kind of changes up, but I do like how quotable it is to some extent as well. I do like him making references to the fact that he's spending more time in the studio than paying his rent, so he might as well live in the studio, kind of talking about his life and relationships. It definitely has a really cool vibe to it. I have no idea what his next album is going to be, but I'm happy to hear what he's been doing over the last year. Number 2 is going to Little Sims with Selfish. As I already mentioned, fantastic, beautiful song that is very haunting, very beautiful. Little Sims talks about the past, the relationship she had, and kind of talks about how things have kind of been for her, kind of achieving where she is, where she could have been with this person, and kind of everything in between, which kind of really sums up the whole album to some extent. And number 1 is going to Tyler, the Creator, with Earthquake, with that great verse from Lil Uzi Vert and his baby voice. Fantastic song, essentially coming to the realization that you might be in love with someone, literally making metaphors to your heart as an earthquake, or kind of that realization of, oh my god, this is happening, and that kind of sense. Lovely, fantastic song from Tyler, the Creator. Let's move on to television.
Okay.
Which I believe everyone has something for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So for my honourable mentions, I'm going to start with AEW Dynamite, which is the All Elite Wrestling show that gets broadcast each week. And it is on English TVs, but it's either late at night or early in the morning. I can't remember. It was one and then they changed it. I think it was early morning, then they changed it to late at night. But it is excellent, a fantastic competitor to WWE's dominance ownership of wrestling.
Okay.
And so many good and different types of wrestling in this. You get your fun little spots where, for example, someone covering themselves in oil as a joke to escape from moves. You've got this one person who's like this skinny streamer-looking kid who does flossing. I'm not kidding. It's and he teams up with this guy who's like Tarzan and a dinosaur luchador. That's his team.
Oh, you gotta send me a picture of that, man.
They are fantastic, and one of my favourite wrestlers at the moment is one of the major people of AEW, being Kenny Omega.
Kenny. I like Kenny Omega.
He, on Halloween, he cosplayed as Sans to the ring.
From
Oh my
Undertale.
God.
Yeah.
The skeleton guy.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And he continuously does that. He was Akuma one time with his buddies as Ryu and Ken.
That's so cool.
Yep. And
That's awesome.
He's excellent, and I'm so glad that there's someone that can finally make WWE try and care about wrestling again, because they've been going downhill for a while.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of wrestling. I mean, I'm a little bit more of a bigger fan since I watch Vice's The Wrestlers, which I would highly recommend if you haven't watched it. Yeah, I know about Kenny Omega because he was, I know he did a match in I forget the other Japanese equivalent.
New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah, the more comedic one they have over there. And he did a match there. But it was definitely reminding me of those guys where they have one of the wrestlers who's just a blow-up doll.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like one of the toughest wrestlers. This blow-up doll, he's tough to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to say is like they're incredibly inclusive as well. One of their like dominant women wrestlers is trans woman. She is fantastic. So all the power to them.
More progress. I'm glad to hear that.
It's great. Hopefully, they'll spur others into doing more.
Yes.
My number 2 on honourable mentions is Watchmen Season 1. So this is supposed to be a sequel to the comics set in the modern day, and it starts off amazingly.
So this is meant to be, this is the 8th sequel to Watchmen, yeah?
4th, I think, that I've mentioned. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
All this year for some reason. And essentially it deals with a lot of stuff that the original Watchmen didn't. Dealing with race issues, for example, dealing with sexuality in some cases. Yeah, a lot of stuff that originally didn't. But then halfway through, it seems to just kind of drop and then just throw in a whole different plot that takes over it.
Yeah.
Which kind of destroys the show, which is really sad. And everyone seems to think it's really smart, and it's kind of not.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because the first half had such promise.
Yeah.
And some of the themes they do, like, they don't trust the police in the first half of the show, and then in the end it's like, don't worry, the system can sort it out, which is such a horrible way to go about it.
Yeah, you kind of contradicted yourself there.
Exactly. I mean, considering one of the early bits is literally that a character, like a black police officer, he ends up becoming a vigilante just because of how racist the other people were that he was working with. And there's a reference to Trump as one of those people that are part of the police racism group.
Of course there would be.
Yeah, it's like Fred Trump, which is one of his grandparents, which are quite a subtle reference because you don't realise it. You just see it say F Trump on the back of a car, and it's far away that you don't even know unless you're looking.
Interesting.
And it's so shame because there's such good stuff in it in the first half. I wish I could recommend it more. It's sad. My number one honourable mention is Deadly Class, Season 1, the adaptation of the comic, and it was cancelled after one season. But it's so fantastic, and it's such a good adaptation. And I got to see my boy Billy alive again. And he didn't die in this show, so he's alive in my heart.
So he'll never die in that
Exactly. And I'd highly recommend people watch it if they're not much of a comic reader or something, just to know that you're not going to get a continuation.
That's sad.
Yeah, exactly. Now for my top 10, starting with Mindhunter Season 2. It's come back, it's even better, which I know. And they literally destroy serial killers. They demystify them and mock them in the smartest way I've seen. And I can't believe how good that is, considering so many other serial killer-esque content came out this year.
Yeah.
Like, Shockingly Evil and that, whatever that's called. It's beautiful. It makes, like, Son of Sam look like a child trying to be smart.
Ooh.
And don't let me start on Charles Manson, that bit's great.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Fun fact, the guy who played Charles Manson in that, I think he also plays him in something else this year, which is weird. Same guy. So, yeah.
My boy's going to get work, man, because everyone loves serial killers.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone has, like, a series on serial killers.
Yeah. My number 9 is The Mandalorian Season 1. It's good Star Wars, I'm shocked. There has not been a single lightsaber in the show. It feels like if someone decided to do a Cowboy Bebop show and do it smartly and not an obvious rip. I don't know how.
Well, what you've described as what you should do is be inspired.
Yeah.
That's what you've basically said, as opposed to just copy.
It's a great mixture of seeing just how messed up that universe is and his day-to-day of, I need to do my job, get stuff done, but I've also got this little cute baby Yoda that I need to look after. He's the most adorable thing ever. I love him. He's my son.
So does the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looks adorable.
He is, and he's even cuter in the show. Some of the stuff he does, like continuously getting out of his buggy when he's not supposed to. He keeps getting put in, then he's right back there next second.
That's so cute.
Number 8 is The Expanse, Season 4.
Oh, I need to catch up on The Expanse.
Originally cancelled on Season 3.
Yeah. Amazon
bought it and got Season 4, and it is so nice. And we get so much more of two of my newer favourite characters, being Drummer and Bobby. Those two are brilliant. They're so well written and so unlike a lot of characters you see in things. One being a soldier who's essentially realising that her nation and maybe nationalism as a whole thing is kind of a busted idea, which more people should probably think about. And Drummer being this very sacrificial person. Both of them are some of the best like women characters I've seen in fiction at the moment. So that's great. And Thomas Jane, he's back again with his kind of weird stuff that happened in Season 3. And every time he's on screen, it's magical. So, yeah. And Season 5 has been confirmed, which I'm so hyped for.
Yeah, I'm just started Season 2.
Okay.
So I kind of, I get it and don't get it.
Yeah, yeah. Some of these characters don't start appearing until Season 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Fair enough.
My number 7 is The Dark Crystal, Age of Resistance. Now, the show has... I was very skeptical when I first heard about it.
Same here.
I was thinking, oh god, they're going to do horribly. The puppets aren't going to be great. It's just going to be a riff on the original show, and that's it. And I was shocked to find out that it was very smart. It actually took inspiration from and then did its own thing as a prequel, and it led up to events incredibly. I I honestly don't have a bad thing to say about it. It was beautiful to watch, and I still haven't watched the behind the scenes stuff, but I need to because that looks amazing.
Well, I do. I have bad things to say about it.
Oh no. My number 6 is Psycho Pass Season 3. The show it hasn't had a season in a while after Season 2.
Was it films in that as
There
well?
were
that was
4
getting in the way,
films. Yeah, and I did enjoy those. 3 came out this year, by the way. This one is a return to form on the excellent thriller sci-fi thriller that Season 1 was, but mixing it with some almost Sherlockian detective skills in one character, and some excellent fight scenes with amazing animation. It's so smooth, so smart, and trust me, it's not like, oh, you have one fight and that's it. It's like, every episode, there's some cool-ass fights. And all the things that were supposed to be horrific are horrific again. Unlike Season 2 that made it almost comical. Which, brilliant 8-episode series. Definitely have to watch it if you like.
That's a rare number count.
Yeah, each episode is about 40 minutes long. Yeah.
Interesting.
My number 5 is Derry Girls Season 2. Derry Girls are back, the hilarious Irish quadruo. Is that a word? Quadruo?
No, you might have just made one.
Well, it's a word now.
Yeah.
They are excellently hilarious, excellently as silly as possible during the Troubles period, which near the end of season you can see some things happening, which I'm interested to see how they take the next season with it. But I swear, the episode with the Travellers was amazing and almost like, oh no, what are you doing? Yeah. How?
Like, my hand was on my mouth most of the episode.
Yes, I could not believe it. Number 4, The End of the Fucking World, Season 2. My favourite nihilistic duo are back. And
title.
It is amazing. They are joined by a new character who is probably more messed up than they are. And I honestly can't believe the trip they go on. The sheer amount of almost happens and coincidence. It's almost reassuring.
Yeah.
Despite how nihilistic the characters are. You almost, they kind of change a bit in a good way. And if you haven't watched any of it, please watch it, because it is some of the best deadpan dark comedy that I think Britain's ever done.
It's on my list.
Yeah.
I was scared away by the hype.
Oh,
and
yeah.
which was really nice. Someone spoiled the ending of Season 1 for me. So I'm trying to not remember that for a while before I go into Season 1.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
My third favourite is Mob Psycho 100 Season 2.
Yep.
It has returned with amazing animation. I could not stop loving this. There were so many happy moments. And just seeing Mob and Reagan again, it was like, yay. It makes me feel childish in a great way. That one incredibly dark, sad episode, and then, God, the fight scenes near the end.
Oof.
Oh my God. I need to see how they did all this.
Yeah.
It's not even just short, cool fight scenes. It's one long-ass fight.
Yeah,
it is
yeah.
amazing. It's some of the best anime at the moment. If you're not watching this and you like anime, I'm sorry, you need to.
I think you need to correct that. If you're not watching this, you need to watch this.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm one of those people. I need to watch it.
Yeah.
No, but you know about Mob Psycho though,
yeah.
so it's alright.
Yeah.
You need to stop on the podcast right now, go watch it, come back, then everything's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? Yeah, I'll do that right now.
Yeah.
Number 2 is Tigtone.
What?
Tigtone.
Oh.
It is a hilariously absurd and disturbing animation, if you can call it animation,
Right.
about this medieval fantasy person called Tigtone doing stupid things on quests.
Yeah.
And it is bizarre and beautiful, and if you don't like stuff like Tim and Eric, you won't like this.
Yeah, if you're not a fan of shows that have intentionally ugly art styles to some extent, or
Yeah.
Adult Swim kind of stuff, so let's say Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Squidbillies, Mr. Pickles, stuff like that, you might, or Super Jail, you might not like this show in terms of aesthetical or maybe even tone, comedic wise.
Yes,
perhaps?
definitely. Yeah. It is definitely part of that whole Adult Swim style weirdness, and I loved it, and I binged it, and then I watched it again several times because weirdness like that I love. It takes so much piss out of cliche fantasy. My number one, which it's not finished yet, it's got 2 episodes that are the season finale, all coming like out on the same time. Mr. Robot season 4, the end of the show. It's ending, and this season has probably been one of the best. It is fascinating how much they do with the medium of film and TV. One episode is almost like a play, the whole damn thing. And you almost forget there are characters in the room from how they stage it. The close-ups, the cinematography is absolutely beautiful. Prime TV, some of the best ever. And you need to watch Mr. Robot if you haven't.
Yeah, I need to go Mr. Robot. Yeah. Some of the things you've told me about Mr. Robot, I was like, what is this?
Yes. It is amazing.
Like, envelope pushing in the right way.
Yeah. And
okay.
I was so happy to see Joey Badass back this season because he is amazing. And he has some of the best lines ever in the whole show. And even characters that I wasn't sure of when they appeared in like season 2 and 3, I love them in this season. They wrote them brilliantly. So just hope that the last 2 episodes are as good. And seeing as how the last episode left us off, I'm thinking it will be.
Good to hear.
Also, it kind of showed Trump as a villain. The back of his head as part of this evil group. It was quite cool.
Well, that's just to be said, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't subtle, but it was funny. That's my TV.
Alright, so slight change of plan. Unfortunately, Owl has left the podcast. She's had to go somewhere, so we're losing her for the last little bit of the podcast, unfortunately, but we're going to make sure that she has the rest of her stuff that she was going to talk about will be talked about on the next podcast next year, whenever that is, unfortunately. But it's just me and Ace at the moment, and we're going to finish up this podcast. Starting with my television selections. I should have watched more TV, to be honest. But my honorable mentions, which I have, I think, one of. Let me double check, because I have pages. My main honorable mentions, the series hasn't finished yet, but I'm really enjoying right now, mainly because I knew it was going to be a good series, and that's Beastars.
Oh, yes.
Very accurate in how it deals with like prejudice and discrimination, stereotypes, depression, identity crisis, as well as unhealthy suppression. Very interesting series. For those of you who don't know, it's a series that takes place in a high school where everyone is an anthropomorphic animal, and carnivores and herbivores technically live together peacefully, although that's very clearly not the case, given that in the very beginning, one of the herbivores is straight up just killed. So things happen in this series. We mainly follow 3 characters. We follow Lugosi, who's a grey wolf. We follow Louis, who is a deer. And we follow Haru, who is a rabbit. And we essentially see how these characters intertwine with the world and the characters. And it's very interesting how things have gone by. Mostly, it's interesting because it's a CGI series, and it's pretty well done for the most part.
I tend to forget it's CG when I'm watching it, because it's actually really well done.
Because I don't think it's hiding the fact that it's CGI.
No.
I think it's done very well. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect. There are a few issues I mainly have with the animation. I can tell that certain characters are moving at slightly different frame rates because they've obviously been animated by different methods or different people. Sometimes the lip syncing can be a bit off at times, and I think I'm trying to 100% figure it out, but some of the audio is a bit odd, and I think I realized why that is. They're using a very specific kind of mic, which is making them maybe not sound the clearest in the world.
Yeah.
But other than that, fantastic series. I obviously hasn't finished, and I haven't watched every episode, but I'm liking where it's going at the moment, especially where the manga goes, which... Ooh, to everyone who's already watching this series, if you think this is dark... You haven't seen anything yet. The series hasn't started to get dark yet.
Also,
or upsetting.
have to say how damn good that opening is.
Yes, the opening is fantastic.
It's the best opening this year for me.
Yeah, we won't say what happens in the opening, but even if you have no interest in anime or animation in some sense, highly recommend. Just type in Beastars opening. You will not be disappointed. That's my main honorable mentions. My favorites, which I only really have, I should have mentioned this is my animations side of television. I only have two I really want to talk about. Rick and Morty season 4. Very short season, unfortunately left me wanting more, given that I thought one of the episodes was a little bit too weak and I found very hard to get into. But other than that, very solid, strong season. I really do like the fact that they are really kind of pushing things, really going out there and really trying to see what else they can do in the most extreme or ridiculous way possible. Really great stuff. I particularly like the last episode of season 5, which basically pointed out how ridiculous and stupid the Terminator franchise is.
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
Very good stuff. My number one favorite animated series, of course, as has already been mentioned, is Mob Psycho 100 season 2. Fantastic display of character growth coming from the first season. Animation is on point, maybe not as good as the first season. I do like some of the slightly more crazy and insane uses of animation coming from the previous studio, but that does not mean the animation is any less good. I mean, season 2 is at a 10, but season 1 was at 11, so that just goes to show how it was. Really love seeing these characters, especially how they intertwined and how the story developed. You had our main character essentially changing, growing, and it was a very interesting series which kind of seemed to up the ante in a very epic and big way, given the fact that I think if there is going to be a season 3, it might be the last season. Boy, it's only going to get crazier and more interesting from here. So that is one I really like, and it's my favorite from 2016.
2019. Time traveling.
Yeah, time traveling right here, right now. 2019. Most disappointing. I do have two, which I really found disappointing, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this one. And number 2, most disappointing, is going to be Demon Slayer.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong with this.
Yeah.
It is not a bad series. This is not me going, oh, it's popular, therefore I hate it.
Yeah.
No. There is some fantastic stuff in this series. There is some stuff which I go, I understand why people like this. The problem is I don't think the series is very well paced or structured or timed or even animation-wise cut well. I find the pacing incredibly jarring, and the series is very poor at explaining things.
Okay.
And I'm not saying I need to know everything, but there's just points where we just cut back and forth, and it's just like, this is something you should have known or could have known. I find it very annoying. I also find the character who is in the orange very annoying.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get his character. We need to stop doing that now. That is cutting into the animation time, especially given when you dedicate almost 5 minutes of that to him being an absolute prat when the season ends so poorly.
Yes, the pacing was an issue with me as well, and the ending, it should have ended several episodes before that, because that's like the start of a new season.
You could have very easily have cut that down to 2 episodes max. The last 4 or 5 episodes were they were boring, man. I'm not even gonna lie, that was boring, and it was even more pointless when it's just like, the film's coming.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the film, because it's not going to be season 2, it's the film, which I still find very bizarre, because I'm not going to spoil anything for people who have never watched it or haven't finished it. It just seems kind of weird, where it's like, why should I get hyped given the setup?
Yeah.
Because I know that our main characters aren't going to be in any harm, maybe? I don't know. There are some great stuff. The main character for a main protagonist is actually pretty likable and pretty smart, which is very refreshing. I do like the guy who wears the boar mask. I think he's a keeper. And I do like some of the character designs. It's very original in how it's designed. It's very original in how the world works, which I really do like. So there are some nice things to it, but at the end of the day, it was just like, take it or leave it to some extent. There was episodes where I was just bored.
Yeah.
When it gets going, it's good. When it's not doing anything, it's quite excruciating to watch. And my number 1 most disappointing animated television series is going to Love, Death and Robots.
Yeah.
What an absolute mess. You literally had a brief of love, death, and robots, aka you can do anything. And the amount of animators in these 17 episode series who decided, I'm going to make realistic looking CGI.
Yeah, I thought that was unnecessary.
What the hell? Like, all of those CGI animations, I'm sorry, I know you must have put in tons of effort, but at the end of the day, it's forgettable. We see that all the time in films, television. It, to some extent, is getting more generic and worse. Why would you opt for that? Secondly, a lot of the episodes which people hype over, I don't think are that great. I'm not saying every episode is bad. I think episode 4 is pretty okay, although it kind of seems to rip off the art style of the Gorillas to some extent, which Jamie Hewlett, who did create the characters, has kind of noted. It just didn't work. It was such a disappointment because it's basically in line with the Animatrix, which is something that is very interesting. And how people came to these conclusions as to what they're going to do is baffling.
Yeah.
The difference between we just made something that I didn't like or there was no effort and thought put into it. When one of the animations is literally just narration from the voice actor who sounds like Orson Welles, that's poor. Like, that's really poor. And it's very disappointing when you have great concepts like the one that takes place in space with the artist who creates everything blue.
Yeah.
Which is by far the best thing in this series.
That's funny enough, that story and the one about the people in space, the ship.
Which one? Because there's like 5.
The one with the spider.
What?
I can't say it without spoiling it, really. But those two are actually written by the same person. And it's from a book from like the 60s.
I don't know what the spider that you're referring to is.
I'll
I've clearly forgotten about it because I found this series so disappointing. If there is going to be a second season, please give the animators more time. Please push originality and difference between the animations further. If someone is coming up to you with, hey, I got CGI, it looks realistic, please turn them away, because the whole point of an anthology is to show difference and variation, not the same fucking thing. Very disappointing, very frustrating. Probably the most frustrating thing I watched this year. And, I've seen some frustrating trash on TV. Live action, I mainly have just my best. Number 5 is going to Creepshow. Speaking of good/decent anthologies, Creepshow 2019, or as we can now call it, Season 1, because Season 2 got confirmed.
So happy about that.
Really great stuff. It is a mixed bag at the end of the day. It is a very budget series. It is all over the place. It is messy in the good way, but it's very campy and very well done. Unlike Love, Death, and Robots, care was put into it, except for that one episode, which was absolute garbage, which makes sense because it was written by and done by the same 2 people, and I was like, oh, so that's why it's garbage. Really fun stuff. If you want to get into some very campy, slightly classical, stupid horror stuff, I would highly recommend this. There's a nice kind of pacing of stars in here and some really great stuff. It will definitely either have you laughing or kind of just entertained. So I definitely wanted to mention this because I really enjoyed it. It definitely really scratched an itch that I was definitely needing. Number 4 is going to Danny's House. This is the talk show / music / sketch puppet show by rapper Danny Brown. Essentially, he has a bunch of actors and other very famous people come to his house and just chill and do other crazy things. It does get very surreal and very crazy because a lot of inanimate objects talk because they're puppets. You have a lot of I like how almost every episode ends with kind of like a, as Danny calls it, bodega tape, where it's essentially a recording from a corner shop of a musical artist performing in it, which I kind of like the very CCTV style of just this artist. Yeah, I got my microphone, I'm just going to spit some bars. Really great stuff. I think that's a great way to promote other artists. And the talks that Danny Brown has, it definitely goes to some very weird places because a lot of his subject matters are very interesting, whether he's talking about like the past or style or aliens to some extent. It's definitely all over the place, and each guest kind of talks about that. And there are a few surprises. There was a very interesting, towards one of the last episodes, a very a wrestler, a WWE wrestler turns up, and I was very happy to see them. So I'd highly recommend that if you want to see something a bit out there. Number 3 is going to The Dark Crystal Age of Resistance. Really enjoyed the series. I, like Ace, was very skeptical. I hated the trailer that originally came up. I was like, this looks like The Dark Crystal.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, the first 2-3-ish episodes did feel too much like The Dark Crystal. But once they started doing their own thing, I really started to enjoy it. I absolutely loved it. I loved the new additions to the characters, despite knowing how the series ends.
Yeah.
It's going to be heartbreaking. But really enjoyed this series. The effects, the puppetry,
It's beautiful.
effort that went into this series deserves an award. Even at that, it deserves your respect, or a DVD buy when we hopefully get it, just for that, because that is filmmaking, that is artistry, that is work. So I wanted to give a shout out to that as my number 3 spot. Number 2 is going to Dairy Girls Season 2. Fantastic sequel season to the first season, which I caught up with recently. A few subplots I didn't quite gel with. I thought they went nowhere, but that does not diminish how funny and how well acted, how well performed, just well the series was done. Absolutely loved it. Some absolutely laugh out loud moments in this series, some great storylines and concepts, and also a comedy that kind of has a pseudo story which kind of deals with a very interesting subject matter, as well as a time period which you really don't get a lot of. I think it definitely is its own unique breed, and it just is even more better that it's actually a really great series. Number 1, I have to give it to Fleabag Season 2. This episode, other than like 5 seconds of the last episode, was fantastic.
Okay.
Takes right off from where season 1 ended, technically taking place about a year later. You don't know what the hell is going on. It's just our main character, Fleabag, in a bathroom, blood dripping down her nose. There's a woman in the corner mopping up blood. What the hell is going on? What a great start to a season. But I loved what the season did and how it progressed the characters and how it kind of ended things so suddenly, because if I remember correctly, one of the lead actresses, who is Fleabag's sister, she was on BBC and she was like, yeah, it's not going to be season 3. It like ends like next week.
Wow.
So, but a good ending at that. And it's a very strong series. Definitely really out there in some sense. I'm actually surprised it's even on BBC, given how weird and how mean-spirited it can be. I mean, there are some really awful moments and really awful characters and really awful display of humankind here. Like some very petty human nature stuff in this series. And I absolutely loved it. It was very funny when you do see one of those characters who is like one of the most despisable characters just up on stage with like the lead actress accepting the award, and I'm just like, oh, that fucking bastard. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure he's a cool dude, but there was part of me going, he doesn't deserve to be up. He was mean to Fleabag, you know. But really absolutely love this season. I would highly recommend this if you're of the age, because it is quite the explicit series. Next section, video games.
Yeah, so with video games, my honourable mentions. Now, the first one, when I say its name, you might get confused because there's another game that's got a very similar name that also came out this year. So, number 3 is Outer Wilds.
Okay, yeah.
Which, this was essentially a game which is on a clockwork. You have, I think, roughly half an hour to an hour, and then everything dies. The world is destroyed. Well, I guess the solar system is destroyed. And what you have to do is investigate the solar system, find out what's happening, and stop it. But you don't know that at the start. It involves translating alien languages, literally flying your spacecraft off of your planet to land on others seamlessly. There's no loading screens, and you're in control the whole time. There's no illusion of now you're in space. It's pure seamless, beautiful, and really nicely done. It explains itself very well.
Yeah, that kind of the concept of going to another planet, I was kind of getting like flashbacks of Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it plays like that, but yeah, that was just what it was reminding me of for a split second.
Yeah. Number 2 is Unheard. This is a Chinese investigation game which has some similarities to Obra Dinn.
Oh, yeah.
Not perspective or art style, but the way of investigating. But in this one, and you need headphones for this if you want to play it right, it's all about listening. It's all about tracking down each person from the surveillance camera, find out what they're saying and finding the information through that, and identifying people through their conversations of who they are and what they're planning on doing. And it's probably one of the more interesting detective-y games because of it. And they actually gave some free DLC as well.
Nice.
Which was great. And there's an extra special ending on top of the normal ending, which has the director of the game, which is cool. Yeah. And I find that very fascinating and smartly done. And it doesn't even tell you that you've unlocked it. You just go on there and then it's there, which is pretty cool.
It's a good way of doing things.
Yeah. My number one honourable mention is the Dark Pictures anthology, Man of Medan. The spiritual sequel, we'll say, to Until Dawn by the same studio. It's shorter, but in that shortness, it can get more done quicker. And I quite like that, and it means you can get some weirder stuff happening.
Yeah.
And it means a lot of replayability, which has been great. Mm-hmm. I got the day one edition, so I got the curator mode, which I know a lot of people didn't, but unlike the special chapter in Until Dawn, this is actually going to be released as DLC.
Which is good.
Yes, because I'm still pissed about that chapter. It's, yeah, angered me.
Yeah, so it should.
Also, performance is just great, and they tricked me well. They did good in this game.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for the next one from that teaser.
Yeah.
My top 10, and I think it's going to be shocking that this is at number 10 and not higher, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice.
Oh, wow, really?
Yes. As much as I did enjoy it, and I loved the difference in movement, the actual combat relied far too much on parrying, which is always my least favourite aspect of the games. So that kind of dragged it down, but it's still so fun, and I still love it. It's still really good. So, yeah, if they make more like this, please lessen the parrying. I liked the more dodging in Bloodborne. Or at least the ranged parrying.
But then something can be said with the more of the focus on the parrying is because it isn't like a Souls game. So,
yeah, I know.
I mean, they could branch off and do something that is more about something else. Maybe technique or stealth or whatever the George R.R. Martin game is going to be. So, you know.
I'm excited for that. Number 9, Resident Evil 2. Great remake that, despite my issue with the camera, I think I said this before, it's really cool. And the actual police station is still the best part. And Mr. X is terrifying. And considering what they've shown for the next game, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Definitely get this, and especially if you want something that zombies is good, not The Last of Us, you know.
Oh,
Resident
or Days
Evil 2.
Gone, I would have said.
Oh, yeah. The only thing I'll say about that is I like the bike, and that's it.
Fair enough.
I haven't played it, so...
Most people didn't.
Yeah. Number 7. So, I got a Switch, and I've been played Pokemon Shield. And I really like it, despite the issues that it's carried on since Gen 5 of Pokemon. I really like this game. It's introduced so many new elements that works, even if some visual elements I hate. I love the co-op battle against Dynamax Pokemon. I hate Pokemon Becoming Giant. I think it's stupid, but it works so well playing with my brother against another monster. It's amazing. And the wild area, which is a big open space, is far better than I thought it'd be. They managed to do that well and shocked me. So, yeah. Number 7. This is The Outer Worlds, which is the similarly named. The first-person RPG by Obsidian that is very anti-corporate, and it is really good. And I like the writing a lot. Think the shooting isn't that great.
Oh, that's a shame.
But it's got some excellent immersive sim-style elements to it. And I want more time with the characters, because I liked the characters. Give me more of them.
Well, if they're starting a franchise, I'm sure there'll be a sequel.
Hopefully.
Or DLC. I think maybe for now DLC might be a little bit more better suited.
I could see an expansion, which would be great, as long as I get more time with them, because there were some funny people in there.
Good.
Number 6, there's always an XCOM-ish game on my list somewhere. And this time it's Phoenix Point.
Oh, yeah.
Made by Julian Gollop. Well, he's obviously the director of the game. Tons of people worked on it. I'm not trying to dismiss them. He's one of the original people on XCOM, and now he's doing his own thing, and it is really great. Essentially fighting Cthulhu-esque human monsters that have come from the ocean through a fog. And they mutate over the course of the game, adapting to how you fight them. And there are cool factions you could join, and one of them is led by a Marxist and an anarchist, and that's my team because they're great. I love them. My only issue being that they copied the class thing from the XCOM games, which a lot of XCOM likes have, and I think classes like gunner, soldier, that kind of stuff is really weak sauce in these games.
Yeah, especially given what you're dealing with.
Exactly. Like, just have stats, and that's it. That's all you need. And it'd be perfect.
Tiny shortcoming, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's still great. And they've got, I think, DLC coming? I don't know. Number 5 is Zanki Zero, which is a first-person grid-based survival RPG. If you know what Legend of Grimrock is, that's the kind of gameplay. But this one, you are a bunch of people on an island at the end of the world. You are clones, and you have to find out what happened whilst aging from childhood to adulthood to old age in 7 days.
Interesting.
And when you die, you have to clone yourself back and start from childhood again. But your stats carry over, which is cool. And you have to form bonds. It is so cool and very original. I haven't seen mechanics like this.
Very interesting and original concept.
Yeah, and the humour is delightful. There's a cartoon sheep, which is a nice reference to Dolly the sheep. Yeah, and a cartoon boy who reminds me of one of the characters from Gundam. And they are great television cartoon hosts that mock you.
Interesting.
Yes. Definitely play it. I haven't seen anyone talk about it the entire year.
Yeah, I haven't heard of it. I might have seen it, but I haven't heard of it via name.
Yeah. Number 4 is Control, which is by Remedy.
Yeah.
And I was skeptical when I first saw it. I was like, oh, God. But it's actually a Metroidvania-esque third-person shooter with amazing physics gameplay. And I love the pseudo-Lynchian style surreality in it. It presents itself as almost like SCP, the Secure, Contain, Protect website.
Oh, yeah.
But as an organisation that you are in. And I just really love the gameplay. It's one of a few times where the mechanics just felt right. And some games find it really hard to do. Even when you're flying about or just a normal shoot. It's so nice. Number 3 is Pathologic 2.
Okay.
So it's essentially a reimagining of the first game, or at least one character of the first game, with more to follow as DLCs. But it expands so much on the original that it feels unique.
Okay.
It feels like a different thing. It's harder than the original. Somehow. You actually have to look after not only your hunger and your thirst this time, which you didn't have to worry about drinking in the previous one. But it's beautiful. It's got everything the original had. If you don't like hard games, though, don't play it. Because, actually it has easy options on this. So maybe do play it. I don't know, it's your choice. I think the harder settings work, and if you watch behind the scenes stuff on this, they're so happy. It's amazing. Seeing them talking about how they want the players to suffer is some of the funniest things ever.
Wow.
It's great. Number 2 is Death Stranding. The
game everyone hates.
Yeah, the Delivery Man game.
The Amazon
Yeah.
Delivery Man game, yeah.
I absolutely loved it. The mixture of having to balance your inventory and actually avoid enemies and work around the environment was superb. A somber, sad story, and even the combat, it wasn't too much. It didn't happen too often. But the best part was connecting with other players through items you built in the world. I built so many roads, and it constantly popped up, people used your road. And I didn't play it for like 2 days and then went back on, and it was like 10,000 people used your road, and I was like, okay, fair enough.
It's an interesting way to use multiplayer.
Yes.
Which I really liked. Because I know some games have used that where you don't, technically meet with someone or stuff like that. So it's very interesting, and I definitely give them props for that kind of concept. Hopefully more games adopt that.
Hopefully, because it is beautiful. And my last one, Disco Elysium.
The game no one's ever heard of.
Yes. This is a classic RPG. Full-on dialogue, mixture of point and click, almost adventure-like stuff, with tabletop stats. It is superb and probably one of the best of its genre, and it is absolutely hilarious. Some of the best writing ever. This is a game where when you wake up and your character looks in the mirror, he's so disgusted by what he looks at, he has an existential crisis. And then my character, 2 hours later in the game, I died of a heart attack.
Oh.
Yeah. So then I played again, and I kept playing, because it is amazing.
Damn.
Yes. And you're constantly talking to your own thoughts as what they are, like logic and rhetoric. It is amazing and beautiful in its ugliness. And I loved that the developers thanked Marks at the Game Awards. That was nice.
Fair enough.
Sorry.
do you have more?
I just have a disappointing.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Now, this isn't disappointing because of the actual game. I just didn't get to play it because of these reasons. And it's Metro Exodus.
Oh.
The PC port is not good.
Yeah, I've heard some issues about that port.
Yeah, it's... I couldn't get it to run properly. And apparently these issues have been since February. And it's kind of because they use NVIDIA proprietary hardware. And unless I shell out that much for NVIDIA graphics cards, I can't play it properly.
It's not worth it. Play on PS4.
Yeah, which is sad because I was so hyped for it, and they just haven't optimized it right. So, yeah. Maybe it's good.
From what I've seen, it's enjoyable, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good game. I would say that much. I only have honorable mentions. I didn't really get to play anything this year. I've pretty much been off of video games for the most part. So I'm going to quickly run down my honorable mentions games I thought I enjoyed. I watched playthroughs of, thought they were worth my time. Might be worth my time someday. Number 5, I want to give to Devil May Cry 5 for just being a classic, straight up action, hack and slash, shooter-ish game that was exactly what the fans wanted. Capcom's back with this one, and I just really enjoyed it. I didn't really like the later parts of the game. I thought the area in which you fight as you got a bit too still. You're there for way too long. But I think all the parts with you and Nero and V in London, basically fighting monsters, and kind of a lot of other details like the animations, just the pretentiousness of V as a character, who is a fantastically designed and written character in the series, as well as kind of really, I do really appreciate them letting those two, V and Nero, really shine in this game. I thought that was a very good idea, but then also giving, I think, the right level of fanboyism to the game as well, but gameplay is tight as hell. Number 4 is going to Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled. Fantastic sports racing game, a really interesting remake that went above and beyond the cause. It really didn't need to do this.
Yeah.
Essentially remaking the classic on the PlayStation 1. Crash, the most beloved character who had such a sad story, is back. Bionox, I believe that's how you say the name. As I said before, did a fantastic job not only bringing this game into the HD era, but expanding and adding onto this game in buckets and leaps. Like, it was really cool finding out that they were going to be like, yeah, all the characters are here, And then they added all the characters from both other kart racing games, which is insane, as well as adding characters that got cut from said original games. So the roster, if they continue releasing free DLC, mind you, we're going to have a kart racer that might have over 50 to 60 characters in it.
Damn, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and costumes are fantastically designed as well. Really funny stuff. And it isn't just a normal cosmetic swap. A lot of the times it's kind of like when you win, you get first place. It's a different animation, said costume you're wearing, or different music and stuff. And the game plays really well. It's such a shame I didn't get to play it, because it's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to, hopefully, them continuing more DLC, because we've gotten to the end of the year and they've added very obscure characters to the point where they added the character that only appeared once in the mobile racing game, which is Yaya Panda. And then Rusty, who was a character that was cut from the original game, which they essentially brought back as their own new character.
Nice.
So obviously people are worried, like, are they going to start scraping the barrel? Who else can they put in the game? Spyro's in the game as well as a few of his characters, because obviously Activision. But really enjoyed this game. Absolutely loved it. Number 3, I have to give a shout out to Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. Fantastic success story from Kickstarter of a Kickstarter game not looking too great when it initially was shown, them making the right decision, going back, fixing, improving the game, and it being one of the better Castlevania games to come out in recent time. Absolutely great game. Haven't watched all of it. I don't know what the later half of the game has to offer. Absolutely loved it, and I thought it was really good. And exactly, if that's what you want, then I think you're going to get what you want. Number 2 is going to River City Girls. Fantastic callback to old school action arcade beat 'em ups, kind of like a spiritual sequel to River City Boys and Crash and the Boys and stuff like that. Really great game. Really plays strong. I love the art style of this, pretty much like a cartoon / anime. The voice acting, although I didn't like Jacksepticeye's voice acting in this game, I really hate the fact he's in it, because I've heard him do voice acting before, and he is not great in this for some reason.
Right.
I don't know what happened. I'm not sure if it was the case of, hey, we just want you to do your voice, Jack. And because he goes all over the place. Unfortunately, his character's involved in the story, and I'm like, but yeah, really great, strong game. Absolutely loved it. And number 1, I have to give it to Resident Evil 2 Remake. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. This is how you remake something. The key word again being went above and beyond.
Yeah.
Not only is this a remake, it changes things, it adds upon things, it does so much that wasn't expected of them, and it's probably one of the only examples I could think of where it feels just like how the original felt back in the day. It has that same kind of feeling and mentality, and it just plays so well and is so strong, and it just is, once again, a really good example of game design. The original game is fantastic in how it's designed, but the way this game is designed as well is fantastic. And it's worth mention for that matter. We're moving on to, I think, our last section, which is the web space.
Yes. So for my honourable mentions, I have number 3, OSW Podcast. This is the old school wrestling podcast. They are the hilarious boys from Ireland doing their best comedy routines watching old school wrestling. And it is hilarious and silly. And I just can't get enough. Every time an episode comes up, I just stop what we're doing. Me and my brother put it on, get some popcorn, just have a laugh. It's brilliant. Number 2 is the Adventure Zone. They recently finished their arc that I wasn't too fond of, but they just started a new one, and it is brilliant. It is hilarious, high school fantasy shenanigans, and their dad, who is in the podcast, has become one of my favourites since he started, who I didn't originally like, and now he's the best. So, all the power to him, because it's literally 3 brothers and their dad playing fantasy, role-playing games. Number 1 is Neoscum, another tabletop actual roleplay, this time in the Shadowrun universe. And they've been a long-stay comedy one, and they just keep going on, and they keep making me laugh every time they're up. Can't get enough of them.
Interesting picks.
Number 10 of my top 10 list is the YouTuber and let's say, article reviewer. I don't know. Seamus Young.
Okay,
He talks about video games. His video series, This Dumb Industry, which he just started, talks about some of the very stupid things in gaming, such as Blizzard's recent, let's say nice kerfuffle in regards to China, talking about the horribleness of Hitman Absolution, and even some of the things that make video games tick, like Skinner boxes and in-game economics. His stuff is great, and I've been a long-time reader of his writings, so I'm happy he's doing YouTube again. Number 9 is the Omen podcast, which is another tabletop actual play. I love these, I can't get enough. And including their original run of their almost Indiana Jones-esque Men in Black style of fighting weird mysteries, they had another almost spin-off with people from a different podcast that I'm going to mention later, where they're the bad guys.
Okay.
Which was amazing, and I kind of want all of them together now.
Yeah, this is getting really deep.
Yes, it's like a podcast expanded universe.
Yeah, getting there.
Number 8 is the YouTuber Innuendo Studios, who has continued his series, The Alt-Right Playbook, talking about how the alt-right work and how to not get pulled into them, essentially. He's also done the series Who Shot Guybrush Threepwood, talking about the evolution of adventure games, which is great. And I can't wait to see if he continues with either of them, but I think he's done. Fair enough. Moving on to different things.
Fair enough.
Number 7 is another actual play comedy podcast called Bits Before Crits. This is a group of a mixture of LGBTQ people playing a whole bunch of different RPGs one after the other, going from Paranoia to Vampire the Masquerade, Dungeon World 7th Sea, and currently Call of Cthulhu. And I sometimes don't realise that I laugh so much playing this.
Okay.
Watching this.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to ask you, which Call of Cthulhu?
The tabletop role-playing game.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just, because there's so many things, I just called that. So I got a bit confused. I was like, what?
Yeah.
But go on.
And some of the antics they get up to is hilarious, and the amount of times they joke about cancelling each other for something someone said is amazing.
Jeez.
Number 6 is the YouTuber Twin Perfect, and it's only released one video this year, but honestly that was enough because this video was great. It is Twin Peaks Actually Explained, no really. Essentially a long 2-hour-ish deep dive into Twin Peaks and a lot of behind the scenes stuff and understanding the symbolism and what he thinks it all means.
Yeah.
Directly from Lynch's brain.
Yeah, I'm glad you specified what thinks.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of people who are like, I know what Twin Peaks is about. This is what it's about. My theory is fact.
Yes. But I will say he is very convincing and a lot of it is so well done. Mm-hmm. So,
cool.
Number 5 is The Boy, H-Bomber Guy.
The Boy. Yes. I've never heard of this YouTuber, The Boy. Go on.
He released several videos this year, but some of the best ones was the climate denial video where he took a massive piss take out of Ben Shapiro. That was beautiful. He talking about director's cuts in the Scanline series with Shannon Strucci. That was great. Hilarity taking down quote-unquote woke brands.
Yeah.
And the trans charity stream he did, which had several cool people pop up on there to help out the charity stream. It was really cool. Number 4 is YouTuber Alexandra Orlando. She mostly does gaming stuff, but she also sometimes does Asian cinema. But the stuff she did this year includes talking about video game fashion and how so much of it is quite shit.
Yeah.
And she talks about some pornographic games, which from a female perspective, that's quite different and cool to hear. Mm-hmm. Specifically talking about Bible Black in one video.
Okay.
Yeah. And one video that I couldn't agree more with is why The Phantom Menace is the best Star Wars prequel.
That's the first one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, technically.
Yeah. And that video is really good, I have to say. Number 3, Lindsay Ellis.
Yep.
She did a 2-part series on Game of Thrones and the horribleness of what happened. They are amazing, and you can see the almost defeat in her as she's talking about them.
In the sea of videos explaining why it got bad or where that particular season was bad, I can imagine coming from her, knowing her work, she would probably have the best outcome.
Definitely. And it's staggering, some of the cool stuff she talks about. There's one bit I disagree with, but a lot of people like that bit and I just don't, so that's me.
Fair enough.
Other than that, she's done some great videos taking the piss out of Disney. One of them being about Disney essentially screwing over Robin Williams with Aladdin.
Big time.
Yeah. And the other one on Disney faking quote-unquote wokeness. Again, people are loving this. So
yeah, I'd like to watch that one.
It's called Woke Disney. It is a great video.
Oh, God.
Yes. The amount of time she says girl boss is great.
I hate the word woke.
Yeah. It's not used as a normal. It's meant derogatorily.
Yeah, I hate it.
Number 2 is YouTuber Jack Saint. He is relatively new. I think he only started late 2018. But he has done some of the best video essayist stuff this year. He did one called Long Critique is Not Deep Critique with Patricia Taxon.
Yep.
Essentially showing why the awful YouTuber Mauler is terrible and why just because a video is long it doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah, plenty of times. My favourite example being... I can't remember his name. I think he might be called Easy Peasy. He did a 2-hour long video literally titled Steven Universe is an awful show made by awful people for a terrible fan base.
Yeah, I know that.
And that video is not worth your time. No. I don't care if you like or don't like Steven Universe. It's not worth your time because there is nothing valuable and interesting in that video. I think it's a he. Yeah. He kind of goes on a tangent about... Simply put, he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy season 5 of Black Mirror for various reasons. He doesn't go into any of those reasons. He just goes into season 5 of Black Mirror is bad because it's bad and it's different. Completely missing the point of an anthology. But continue.
That video is one people seem to intentionally misunderstand by just saying, "Oh, a long video is bad." Which is not what he's saying at all.
No.
Also got the can art be objectively bad video, which the answer should be obvious. No, it can't. And videos about why Jeremy Kyle is trash. And why all cops are bad, brackets, in media.
Yeah.
Which, they're so good. I can't get enough. He does make videos I haven't agreed with. Some that I think he misses points on. But overall, amazing stuff and some of the best stuff this year. Last one, number 1, Critical Bits. Now, these guys do a superhero actual play podcast. They are hilarious, silly, and all over just having so much fun. It's less superhero at times and more body horror. And it's hilarious.
Jeez.
One of the best things is their 4-hour special, The Story of Spider Day, which has numerous YouTube guests on it, including people like H-Bomber Guy as characters. And I think I've never laughed 4 hours straight before, but I did because of this. If you honestly want to get into it, maybe just watch that one 4-hour special.
If you have the time.
Yes. It's amazing. That is my web content, people.
Oof. Oh boy, mine is almost kind of like a contrast to yours to some extent as well, but not that they're any worse. These are my best, so no real order. I just kind of listed them down, just people who I absolutely love their content, love their work, love what they did this year. Mainly YouTubers. First one I'm going to give is to Kaidikarus, video game reviewer. He's had a pretty good year. He's really excelled in really going all above in terms of his crazy nonsensical stuff, and I think he's really grown as a better reviewer now. Definitely honing his points and really getting into stuff like, for example, his Death Stranding review, which he did not like the game, but he definitely gives a lot of great points and definitely shows and actually gives his frustration and anger with the game actual meaning and point, as well as very ridiculous stuff like, for example, during his Medieval remake, he for some reason is dressed as a coffin. Sorry, he is dressed as a tombstone.
Oh, that's brilliant.
Just because. He has a very kind of YTP kind of random remix kind of mentality, so he probably won't be for all of you. His editing and style can just be so random at times, but he's consistently entertained me throughout this year. Next, I'm going to give a shout out to Abroad in Japan, Chris Broad. Definitely making some of the better and more entertaining videos regarding Japanese culture and the lifestyles of people living in Japan, which I do find very interesting. He recently did a cycle across Japan this year, which looked like it almost killed him, but he was joined by guests along the way, one of which I didn't like, but excuse that. And it was very interesting to see someone who has spent so long in a foreign country really kind of almost become a foreigner again to some extent, and it was a very interesting subject matter. He definitely has the typical like 10 things you do, places and that kind of stuff, but I do think he is a very underrated and entertaining person if you're essentially interested in travel or the land of Japan. So I wanted to give him a mention because I think he's definitely excelled, especially given how much work him and his team put into the whole cycle across Japan. So I wanted to give him a shout out. Next I want to talk about is Matt McMuscles, formerly of the Super Best Friends Play. He, once again, has really excelled himself in terms of what he has been doing, having so many series which definitely really explore the video game series and have definitely gone to very interesting places, like his mini-series Gone Too Soon, which talks about video game studios who have gone too soon and closed down, to other series which talk about his Flophouse Files, which talk about weird and random things that video game companies have done, to his What Happened, which essentially talks about what happened to some of the biggest video game failures of all time. He has a lot of content coming out almost every single day, not to mention his playthroughs, which have been pretty great, whether he was playing Sonic 06 or Clock Tower 3. Very interesting stuff, and I want to give him a massive shout out for really cementing himself as one of the better YouTubers who are working with video gaming in that kind of capacity. Next, I want to give a shout out to Neki Jakey for some of his comedic video essays. He has been pretty consistent over this year. Not too many videos, but I really did like his video talking about horror in video games, which was very poignant. I loved his video where he talked about demo discs within video games, as well as how you get video games. A lot of great stuff, as well as very oddball videos where he talks about the Disney Channel original movie. He definitely makes a very compelling argument on that video. Next, I want to give a shout out to Ralph the Movie Maker. He's had a very good year. I think he's definitely found his style, his identity. Definitely, he has a very I don't care about the video review kind of style, which I think works. Sometimes don't consider him just like some lazy guy, because when you really hear him, he's actually kind of knows what he's talking about. Really want to give him a shout out for a lot of his videos he's made and the weird kind of sub-story he has going on with his videos. Next, got to give a shout out to Red Letter Media, some of the best producers regarding films right now, whether it's the Half in the Bag series where they review current films, which has, interestingly enough, been very short this year, probably because there's not a lot of films to talk about. There haven't been a lot of episodes. Even this morning, someone was asking Jay, who's one of the people there, what happened to that review of the film you did? To which he replied saying, I've never seen this film. Very interesting stuff, along with Half in the Bag, which they essentially roundtable discuss some of the worst and most out there films you could. I'm not even sure if you can even imagine. Next, I want to give a shout out to Anthony Fantano, aka The Needle Drop, for being one of my favorite music critics, and definitely someone who really helps me get into music and kind of understand music, and really, as I said, helps me kind of get into music somewhat more. Massive shout out to him. Next, Video Game Donkey. He's had a pretty good year. I loved his sequel to Video Game Criticism Part 2, which was absolutely ridiculous and really showcases how messed up and how stupid video game criticism or opinions are, because it's just all fluff at the end of the day. He handled it very well, as well as his really random and off-the-wall videos. And I want to also... he also got married recently, so congratulations to him as well. And final person, I got to give a shout out to my boy, my favorite YouTuber of all time, Vash12349. He's had a bit of a rough year. He's played some games he's not really enjoyed too much, aka Condemned 2. That playthrough was... I used to wonder why there was no Condemned 3. Now I know why there is no Condemned 3.
Yeah.
This playthrough literally has audible evidence of someone just checking out and giving up. No disrespect to him, because I do not blame him, but there's literally the key word of that playthrough is, I can't see. Can you see?
Yeah.
Because no wonder he did not want to play that game.
Did he give up at the railway at one point? Like, he just didn't know where to go?
He was confused during the railway section.
So was I.
Yeah, but he's had some really great playthroughs, like his Resident Evil 2 playthrough. I absolutely loved. He did a very sneaky thing where he dubbed it as a blind playthrough, despite the fact he had played it 8 times. He got the game super early, but he jokingly did a lot of stuff where he pretended like he didn't know what was going on. There's one point where he's like, get ready guys, I'm going to do this puzzle in one try. Does it in one try, and he just starts laughing. And he's like, that was one try, I've never done that puzzle before.
That's amazing.
And I do like the some of the recurring jokes he's made, like, for example, him and his relationship with Chef Irons. Not Chief, Chef Irons.
Perfect.
As well as the, I guess the quote of the playthrough being, Diddy Mamma Mia? Which, we don't have a quote section of this podcast, but that would be just the line, Diddy Mamma Mia.
Yep.
And those are going to be my... people from Webspace. We are coming up to the last section of this podcast, which I think is going to be a pretty riff one, because it's literally just us going this, that for the most part, and that's going to be highs and lows of 2019, seeing as we are ending the last section of 2019. Ace, do you want to hit us up with some of that stuff from 2019 for us, please?
Yeah, so some highlights was starting a new job, which was really cool. And it was going like really cool. Everything's like been such stressful. There's been so much going on. So that was some like balance, which helped to actually organize around. I'm very, very happy with that. One of the lows was definitely the recent election. I was not happy with that.
Yeah, I think it's understandable.
I think it's just been such a weird year where I can't really balance the weird kind of hills and valleys.
This year's been a zigzag.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I mean, both personal and world-based stuff, I guess you could say. Is that it for you?
Yeah, that's for me, all I can remember.
I got a few things, but I don't have very much to say because they're very self-explanatory. My highlights, in my personal life, I really enjoyed Record Store Day 2019. It was a successful mission accomplished, basically. Got everything I wanted. 4 hours of lining up. In and out. I'm done. Taken care of. That one time, one of the many adventures me and Ferret go on, which was us going to the BFI South Bank for the Dark Crystal exhibition on one of the hottest days in UK history. It was nice and cool in the BFI, just to let you know, but outside we were desperate for that bus.
Yeah.
The amount of people who didn't know how to dress themselves or their children was ridiculous on that day. No joke. I saw at least 3 people walking around in bathing suits without anything on their feet.
What?
Yes. It's not that hot.
No.
And you're in London, of all things. I would expect that from some of the areas we live close to, but that was definitely something. When me and Recess, we went to see the Solange short film When I Get Home. That was a fun time. Especially because we had dinner afterwards and we were discussing the deeper meanings of that film.
Nice.
And us on the podcast, a few moments I definitely liked when we talked about me and Recess. We talked about It Chapter 2 and how we predicted how it was going to be bad. Me and Owl talking about the Sonic the Hedgehog trailer, which was
brilliant.
Something. And I just want to give a shout out to a few people, few things, really quick. Channel 4, I think they've done a really good job with their network, kind of embracing criticism and doing a nice partnership with Adult Swim to get a lot of their stuff on their online streaming service, along with just straight up putting films on there, which is great. Also want to give a shout out in terms of distribution to Criterion Collection, Arrow Video, Third Window Films, Manga Entertainment, Anime Limited, and MVM Entertainment for all of their distributions of stuff they released this year. That's how I was able to watch One Cut of the Dead. That's how I've essentially been boosting up my film collection with Arrow and Criterion Collection. Manga Entertainment for picking up BoJack Horseman, Adventure Time, Steven Universe, along with a lot of other shows they're hinting that they may have picked up, Cartoon Network shows, which I'm so happy to see. Anime Limited for putting out films like Premiere and the Konosuburo film out in cinemas, and MVP for putting out one of my favorite animes of recent years, being Made in Abyss, Girls Last Tour, and of course a lot of the entries in the Monogatari series. Lows really quickly. I was like trying to kill myself this year. I almost fell off my scooter, almost like breaking my hand. Jeez. That was bad. I got a pretty bad blister on my foot, which almost like incapacitated me. It was bad, and I'm gonna spare you the gory details.
Yeah.
I had people messing me around with jobs. They wouldn't pay me, so I had to basically take care of them. And a lot of the votes, the political votes, cancelled a lot of my pretty important plans. Both votes really messed me up big time in terms of not being able to properly assess and get a job / not being able to go to Comic-Con. Both of those votes messed me up big time. In terms of some of the worst people of this year, Netflix done fucking up this year.
Yeah.
You hardly had anything good, and you're very clearly struggling given the fact that some of your flagship shows have ended. It's very obvious they're panicking. They are panicking because BoJack Horseman ends next year and they don't have a flagship cartoon.
And Orange is the New Black ended this year. I didn't get to see it yet.
Yeah, they are panicking. I don't know what's going to happen with the streaming battle, but they've done a pretty shit job. Also, not to mention that disgusting Enter the Anime film they released. Don't even get me started on that. The best friends that are Blizzard and China, I absolutely loved that scenario. Blizzard being possibly on this list one of the biggest fuck-ups of 2019.
Yeah.
It's very transparent and it's very obvious who you align with, Blizzard / Activision. You really need to just cut the bullshit and just say you don't care about the Western audiences or you don't care about integrity. It's very obvious. There's no point in you lying to us. Yeah? This ain't 1950 where you could have got away with it. It's obvious. If you want to be ruled by someone like that, that's perfectly fine. But there have been plenty of examples that have shown that you do not need the power and the weight of China to keep you afloat.
Yeah.
China is one country. Yeah, it's not the world. Sony for fucking up. They did nothing this year.
Yeah, I couldn't even think of anything they did. Like, any films or anything.
Nothing. Sony did absolutely jack all this year. Their limp-wristed attempts at doing Nintendo DirectX videos have been pretty poor at that. Next, I want to give a shout out to Google for being one of the biggest companies, but honestly not understanding how the world works.
Yeah.
YouTube is on its way out. They have rolled out the 2 new systems where you have to clarify whether your video is for children or not, which, yes, that is via law, and I completely understand that. There are positives, and I understand why that's important. The way in which they've implemented it is very frustrating. And also, as of December 12th, YouTube can just delete your channel. They can just do that. If they feel that your channel does not align with what they believe in, or they think it's inappropriate, or they straight up just don't like you, they can delete your channel. No questions, no ifs, no buts. That's fair. Also, anyone remember Stadia?
Yeah. What a hilarious disaster.
Big time. Disney, being the malicious company they are, obviously I don't really need to say anything. I thought almost every film they released this year was very poor.
Yeah.
Their malicious intent to, I don't know, just be confusing in their rhyme and reason I find very frustrating. And also, to link back to all of China, you releasing the Mulan film with the lead actress saying all that bullshit about Hong Kong is not on. You should have stepped in. But I understand everyone is scared of China because we need to abide by what China says.
Well, it's why they're doing a Chinese superhero film, Shang-Chi.
Yeah, of course they are. The next one is kind of an odd one, and it's something that I have been avoiding, obviously, because I've been waiting for this moment to talk about it, and that is going to be Billie Eilish. More or less, the way she has been forcefully marketed, her very fake personality, and just everything about her. She has been mass advertised on YouTube for whatever reason. I straight up refuse to listen to this album, just out of protest for how hard you are pushing this artist. I haven't heard a single damn song. I've not watched a single music video. I have avoided her viciously because I do not agree with the way they are going about managing her, which I do kind of feel sorry for her. If she wants to essentially be a puppet like Taylor Swift, that's perfectly fine by me. Just don't complain like Taylor Swift when you realize you become a puppet.
This is why I have to compliment Adblock so well, because I didn't hear about her until you told me about her.
She's been everywhere. I've typed in Tyler the Creator and it's been like, did you know Billie Eilish? And I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. It could be the greatest album ever.
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to it just out of spite. And I find the way in which she acts and the way she kind of composes herself, which is a fake personality, mind you, very concerning. The fact that she is literally in interviews laying down on the table like, I don't give a shit, I'm too big for this, doesn't make me care about who you are, especially when you're trying to sell a product. Why should I care when you don't care? And secondly, I find her comments about people who wear Vans and having small dicks very questionable and concerning, because she needs to realize she is a role model. Children look up to her.
Yeah, body shaming.
Body shaming, thank you. I don't get that. And that just passes, that's just fine. Because if she wasn't as famous as she is, or because the whole idea behind Billie Eilish is having depression gives you a personality. I'm depressed, I'm emo. Well, she's bubblegum emo, pretending to be goth, because goth, that's not goth.
Yeah.
That's a problem I have, and if she wasn't as popular as she was, or if she was someone else, she would have been absolutely destroyed by media. But that's fine because we like Billie Eilish. Absolutely annoying. And a few unfortunate sad things I do want to mention. I was very heartbroken, upset about Kyoto Animation Studio with the arson attack, and the disgusting state of British politics.
Yeah, it's horrifying. Absolutely horrifying.
It's really bad.
And the media, like mass harassing.
When it is more feasible for young people, mainly more or less our age, when it is more feasible for us to go and live in countries like Japan, where we can't speak the country, you done fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm no disrespect to Japan as a country, but their houses are cheaper and more convenient than trying to get a house in this country. And I'm not trying to complain and say, oh, I can't find a job in that. I have a job. I have money. I have a career. But
the housing market has been horrible for years.
Yes. And I find it just completely ridiculous that a lot of other parties are essentially looking to our generation, so that younger generations going, why aren't you married? Why aren't you in a relationship? Why aren't you have kids?
Why aren't you buying diamonds?
Yeah, because you ain't letting us.
Yeah.
Simply put. You want to literally kick us down and pick us up and then ask us questions. No, that's not how it works. Absolutely awful. I'm absolutely terrified as to what's going to become of this country.
Yeah, I can see a lot of bad happening.
But hopefully that bad won't happen. But I think we now need to look to the future now. For the last two sections of the podcast we have, it's been a long one, but we are finally looking to most anticipated of 2020. Ace, do you have some things you want to discuss?
Yes. So I actually forgot my list, so I'm kind of just going off of my memory. One of the first ones is, if this film actually gets made, I'm thinking of Ending Things by Charlie Kaufman. I've only heard little bits, and considering just how good his work is, and he just puts so much care into them, I want it out. And it was supposed to be a Netflix thing. It's supposed to come out this year, but I haven't heard anything, and now it's delayed, I believe. So hopefully it'll be out.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. There's so many films. I think is one called Last Night in Soho?
Yes.
Yes. That one by Edgar Wright. I'm very excited and very intrigued to see what he does. There's the Gretel and Hansel film, which I can't remember who's doing that, but very excited to see.
I know the director. I don't know. Yeah, but I didn't really care for the trailer, but I'm definitely interested in the film itself.
I actually didn't know there was a trailer out. So
there is a trailer, yeah.
Okay, I might have
It's
to check that out.
very vague.
Yeah, okay. Onto some video games. I know that the System Shock 3 game is in the works, and I'm hoping.
I don't think it's going to come out next year.
I know, but I'm hoping. I've heard some cool things, but I don't know.
I'm worried about this one personally.
No, so am I.
I'm really scared they're going to mess it up, but
Yeah.
I'm hoping they don't.
And
Go on.
Baldur's Gate is getting a new sequel, which is crazy. Baldur's Gate is like late 90s, early 2000s. No, yeah, late 90s kind of classic RPGs. But there was a DLC, I believe, that was released for 2 recently by the people who are working on 3, and it wasn't great. So maybe they learnt from their mistakes. I don't know. I hope so.
Let's hope.
Yeah. And what was it? There was another game that was in my brain, and I can't remember it now. I'm going to move on. Tom King is doing an Adam Strange comic. I'm very excited. I hope it's got the same kind of heart that his Vision comic did. And I believe he did Mr. Miracle. If so, I hope it's as good as those, because those are great. I think that's all I can think of without my notes.
Fair enough. I have a few things to mention all across the board, which I'm looking forward to, and I'm hoping they're going to be good. No particular order. Brand new Animal, which is Trigger Studio, the animation studio's next anime. Very interested in this series. I don't really know what's going to happen in this, given that they've kind of been on a winning streak with Premiere and then SSS Gridman. As far as we know, it takes place in a world where it gets discovered that there are half human-ish kind of characters, and then a girl just turns into a tanuki.
Nice.
I'm very interested in what's going to happen. I love that promotional poster. It has like the very neon blue and purple cityscape. I'm very interested to see. Hopefully there's going to be some real creativity and interest through that series. Next I want to talk about Resident Evil 3 Remake.
Yes.
I'm terrified that this I'm terrified this game is actually going to be too scary to play. Nemesis is...
Yeah.
He's a threat, and I'm scared. If they did that with Mr. X / Tyrant, what they're going to do with Nemesis, I'm dreading. I'm actually dreading playing this game because I have a feeling that I might like wet myself or something like that, knowing him. It's going to be rough.
Yeah.
But I love the changes I can see so far with the character designs. I love some of the more hints towards changes as well. I'm looking forward to hopefully new environments. I'm hoping that we get a little bit more of Resident Evil 2 blending into it as well with scenarios. Hopefully we get that. Yeah. So I'm incredibly hopeful for this game. Another game I'm looking forward to big time is No More Heroes 3.
Oh, yes, yeah.
We haven't seen any gameplay of this game, but knowing Suda51 and knowing the effort that went into that return trailer, and given what this game could be about and all the other behind-the-scenes stuff I've seen, excited. Big time. I cannot wait to see what happens with this game. Once again, Last Night in Soho, Edgar Wright's next film, which is a horror thriller psychological thing.
Yeah.
Based on 2 stories, apparently, which I haven't read to. I don't want to look at anything. The only thing I've seen is those 2 images of one of the lead actresses, one of her looking absolutely mortified looking at something, and Edgar Wright talking to another actress. But I'm very interested to see him actually handle something that might be a little bit outside of his maybe comfort zone.
Yeah.
I think he can pull it off. I don't think Edgar Wright can direct, let's say, an incredibly disappointingly bad film. I don't think he's capable of that. He's too smart of a person for that.
Yeah.
And the last thing I want to shout out, more of a personal thing, and that is going to be, I can confirm I will be going to Japan in 2020.
Nice.
Along with other people that you have and haven't heard of. We're heading to Japan, don't know when, don't know how, but we're going to go there, and it's going to be great. And
you did actually just remind me, Deadly Premonition 2.
Deadly Premonition 2, if that does come out.
That's why I got a Switch.
Do we have any personal goals we want to talk about?
Yes. So I was trying to get a game ready to release for this October. So much stuff happened that I didn't. Hoping I can release it before summer, because I really want something out there for people to play this is going to be free. I think my first few will be. So it'll probably be on stuff like itch.io, or I'll just leave a link on a Tumblr that I'll make. So there. And I'll put it on my Twitter as well.
Yeah,
for people to know about.
Okay. Is that just it for the main goals and plans?
Think of,
Yeah, I have a few. They're kind of slightly more general, but I have just a few ones. I really want to get back into filmmaking and video editing. YouTube and the back and forth between what they're doing and having videos of mine getting taken down and all that kind of stuff has really put me off of one of the things I absolutely love. That's probably why there hasn't been any this year, because why would I invest all that time in just for absolutely no one to see it? So I really want to get into that. I want to try and watch 20 films next year.
Okay.
New or old, I want to do 20 films. And one thing which I can finally confirm, this is a exclusive which no one knows anything about, and that's Project 2020.
Ooh.
I'm going to hopefully get that done. Okay. It's going to be big. It's going to be interesting. Unfortunately, because of what it is, you won't see it. But certain people who have and may not have been on this podcast will definitely be able to talk about it in some capacity. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Last section, predictions for predictions for the next decade. Yep. Final fun section. We're at the end, guys, where we're just going to spitball and just talk about what we think is going to happen in the next 10 years.
I'm seeing a lot of riots happening. A lot.
See, I said predictions, not facts.
You're going to see stuff all over England. Depending on what's going to happen, certain types of people will riot.
Yeah.
Different outcomes, but I can already see stuff happening. America, same thing, especially with Trump being impeached, whether he gets removed from office or not, there's going to be some shit happening.
Yeah.
I can just see a lot of social upheaval and a lot of problems happening, and I'm looking very nicely at Japan and Finland right now. I'm thinking dreamland.
If a quick note on Japan, if Japan can get those 3 crucial issues with the country fixed, because they've done a pretty good job in terms of things like the age of consent and a few other things pretty much stamped down.
Yeah.
If they can get those 3 pretty big issues taken care of, which almost all kind of blend into the same as well, they'll be good. They'll be up there with one of the better countries out there, because Finland, they don't have any issues over there to some extent.
Not that I know of, and their current Prime Minister Finn seems so cool. I'm happy with.
Yeah. That's a good positive thing to say. My predictions, I have a few. They're quite dour, but I think they will happen. I have thought about this and I've kind of looked and assessed, and here's my few takes. YouTube will collapse.
Yeah.
I don't think YouTube will be around in 2030.
Yeah.
I think it'll be down. Someone will either take its place, or they will be forcefully need to take it down, or it will not be YouTube as we see it right now. I don't think it's going to exist. Equally as well, the video game industry, I think, is going to be in an even worse situation than it is right now.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to collapse.
No.
I think we're either going to have to get a reset, because we are losing markets, we're losing people, we're losing industry, and we're also losing interest. Not just in people who want to play games, but in people who want to make games.
Yeah.
It's getting bad. I think it's going to be in a pretty bad position, and I think people like Microsoft and Sony might be the ones who kind of spearhead it into a bad direction in terms of consoles. I think Activision and EA are going to be the ones to really kind of destroy the sanctity of what a video game is, because video games, according to them, as well as the people who make Fortnite, it's just a subscription.
Yeah.
I think Disney is going to try or acquire the following people.
Okay.
I think they're gonna try and acquire the Sony's film division.
Yeah.
They want Spider-Man that bad. I think they will just pay up front and just take it. Also, if they do take part of Sony, that would mean that Disney would take a percentage of Blu-ray, because Sony owns Blu-ray, and Disney probably would like that as well. I think they're going to try and buy Nintendo.
God.
Nintendo is the only other company that rivals them in terms of image.
Yeah. It's true.
Disney doesn't have a video game division or any kind of forefront in that. They're going to try and buy someone.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the EA partnership they've done is garbage. I think they're going to just straight up try and buy someone. I think they'll buy Nintendo, and I think Nintendo will decline.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo is way too wealthy and way too smart and obviously way too foreign for a Western audience. The other one, which is going to make people really upset, but I think they will attempt and will not get, I think they're going to try and acquire Studio Ghibli.
Yeah, I mean, considering the partnership they've had, I could see them trying.
I think they're going to try to, and I think they are going to get turned down big time. Hopefully it doesn't happen. The Simpsons, I think it's going to get rebooted.
Yeah, I could see that happening. People are tired of what it is, but it's such a cash grab. You can see it trying to do something, failing, but they're just going to keep going.
Yeah. And that's pretty much my predictions. That pretty much brings us to the end of the podcast. The last thing we have to talk about is the video of the episode, which took me a long time to even find something worthy of holding this plot. I wanted to try and find some kind of mashup, overhaul, meme-ish thing to do 2019, but they were all trash. So instead, I'm going to be leaving Red, an animated short film by Ritzy Studios, who is a UK-based animation studio. Essentially, it's about Rudolph. And I'm not going to say anything else. It's not more than 3 minutes, but it is really worth your time. Anything you want to add before we wrap up this very, very long podcast?
I think that's it. I've said everything I can think of. It's been a turbulent year.
Yeah. With that being said as well, I just want to thank you, Ace, for being on the podcast. Al, Recess, and everyone else who has contributed to the podcast as well. Hopefully everyone has had a good Christmas and has a good New Year. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that 2020 will be a good year. Yeah. We will be back with podcast 132, roughly around about January the 13th or so. So we'll see you then. We might have a new sound, new style, new format, new structure. So look forward to that. Or it might happen on podcast 140. But with that being said, I'll end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Younger Raccoon.
I am Ace.
And we will see you next year and on the next podcast.